Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Real Takes. My name is Riley Granson.
I'm Max Medlin, and looks like people are still listening, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
We had 48 people viewed the last one. I think my benchmark. I said I'd be happy if we had 50, so that's a good start.
Do you think it was just like Marissa listening to it 50 times, or
Oh,
Joe?
it was probably mostly my mother and my aunts. Would be my guess. Maybe I don't know if they count people that watch it twice, but I know personally I played it a couple times while I was messing around with it, so that's probably like 10 of the views at least.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is a show where Max and I, two average dudes, just talking about movies, talk a little bit of news. We talk some TV. We don't have any TV news to talk about this week. But kind of the highlight of our show is we'll also get into some stream picks of the week. We're going to talk a little bit of Deadpool 2 as well as Solo. You might notice that our sound quality here is a little bit different. Max might sound like he's a little bit more on the phone. Unfortunately, we did not have the luxury of recording in the same room this time. So as our low-budget affair continues here, Max will sound like he's on the phone.
I'm back out in Montana.
He's back out in the Montana. Max, you have a good week or what?
Oh yeah, it wasn't too bad. Came back, went right to work, which is never fun, but hasn't been too bad. River's about to overflow. Going to lose our home here probably, but no big deal. Good. All right. Well, and I hope people are enjoying their the 50 people that are listening to this are enjoying their Memorial Day weekend. I know I had a good time. You guys are the best.
Yeah. Talking a little bit of movies is a great way to kind of go back to work tomorrow for me. I was off all weekend. I had the luxury of that, so.
God, wouldn't that be nice?
It's not a bad way to end the weekend here. I spent some time with Marissa's family up at down south of here a little bit, so had a great time.
I don't even know what a weekend off is.
When is the last time that you actually do you get weekends off, or how do you? I mean, do you?
Sometimes right now we're on a 4-on 4-off schedule,
Nice.
But when we go back to the summer, I'll probably just get Wednesday, Thursday off. So
I
just lose track of the time. Everybody's like, "Oh, are you going out?" I'm like, "Why?" It's like Monday. Oh, it's actually Saturday.
Right.
Oh well.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll be back. I'll be back to Duluth in a couple weeks anyway.
Today felt like a Sunday to me, just because I haven't had a Monday off as soon as I've started this new job. So, but yeah,
Chris can get down to Knife Lake there.
Yeah, it's a great little cabin. You know what I noticed though? Like, it's a little bit different than like my parents have a cabin up north of kind of where we're from. I noticed a little bit less space between the neighbors. Like, they're right on top of their neighbors. Which is fine. They're nice. They're all really nice people. But I think there's a little bit more to the privacy of it all, which is. But I guess you don't get to pick and choose.
Yeah, I agree. I like the place where you can, you know your neighbors, but
Right.
You can go have a cookout in the backyard, and they're not like, "Hey, what are you guys cooking? We're coming over."
Yeah,
No,
they're not
please
snooping in or like stealing food off your grill or whatever.
What are you guys up to? Hey, we brought some Bud Light. We're gonna drink the
Right.
shandy there.
That's right.
It's my move.
Yeah, what stealing other people's shandy or just stealing other people's beer? Because I'll agree to both of those.
No. Well, you bring in like some Bud Light or Miller Lite, just some piss water. And then you drink the nice stuff.
Right.
Like, hey, thanks for this Amber Bock. I brought the beer over there. Don't look at it. It's Miller Lite.
Yeah.
It cost me $5.
Yeah. Do you miss the Duluth brews out there or what? There's some pretty good Duluth beers.
I do, but Montana is probably about the same level as Minnesota when it comes to craft beers. Missoula is huge for craft beers. So is Bozeman.
Sure.
The same like pretentiousness. But Billings has a number of different breweries. Uber Brew's really good. So there's a lot of cool stuff down here as far as brews and stuff. So it makes me feel like home.
Sure.
In that regard. Also, a lot of homeless people on the streets, so it really makes me feel like
Fair enough. All right, and again, we Max's audio quality is probably not going to be as good as mine. Again, we are recording this over Skype on a beautiful Memorial Day. I don't know what it's like out there in Montana, but here in Minnesota, it's actually nice for once. I went out and mowed my lawn and didn't sweat into a pool of just sweat and blood, and I don't know why I said blood, but yeah, man, it's been nice.
It rained so hard I had to pull off the highway today.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, very, very different weather patterns here, but it's supposed to rain tomorrow and then get back into the 80s. So
welcome to Real Weather Takes.
Hopefully my time off will be. That's what we should do. What we should do is just, we should criticize weather bending.
It's like, you said it was going to rain and it's 99.
Yeah, that's a bad take.
That is a bad take. All right. Well, why don't we jump right into it? You've got some news stories here that we talked about. A lot of news actually dropped between the last time we recorded and this time we recorded, so we can only kind of pick and choose the different things. So I'll let Max go ahead and jump in there with some of the news that he picked.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of cool stuff going on. Bond 25 starts production in December, projecting a November 8th of 19 release date with Danny Boyle directing. Are you excited for that, Riley?
I'm very excited for it. And a lot of people, I know they didn't really love Spectre. I enjoyed Spectre, and Daniel Craig's coming back for this one too. Finally, we got confirmation of that after he was whining about maybe wanting to do Bond or not wanting to do Bond.
Yeah, he's not coming cheap. Looks like he's gonna get £50 million for this movie. I couldn't tell you what that is in dollars.
Is that actual? Is it an actual?
Yeah. Reportedly, would get a paycheck of £50 million. He got £37 million for Spectre, if I'm not mistaken. He'll get £357,000 per minute he's on screen.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's assuming what, a 2-hour movie, 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you a Bond guy? Are you into the Bond thing? The Bond stuff?
No, not really.
No?
I never really have been a Bond guy. Casino Royale.
Yep.
I thought was good. I don't even know if I saw Spectre, to be honest with you. I never really got into the Bond stuff. I'm not against him, but it's just something I never got into.
Sure.
You know.
No, it's definitely a genre that I think a lot of people try to wade into the water to, but there's so many of them, and I think nowadays when you're used to people like Hugh Jackman playing the same character for 100 movies, people it's like
Robert Downey Jr.
Right? Yeah, it's like, well, I thought he was James Bond, and it's like, well, now we got another James Bond, and there's other rumors.
I tell you what, you know who I would love to see as James Bond?
Yeah,
Idris Elba.
That's a pretty common. Call.
I think he'd be a fantastic Bond. He's a great actor. He's
a terrific actor. You know what? And I don't like his American accent. I don't know what it is. He just I don't know if you've seen Molly's Game or not, but I struggled with his American accent a little bit in that movie, but he's a great actor.
He's undercover.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't. Well, I mean, he's British though. I mean, right. Yeah, I would love to see. He's great as Heimdall. That's the kind of he's badass as Heimdall.
Plot twist: make a James Bond a British version.
James Bond is British.
Why can't he have a British accent then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I would like to see Idris Elba do something with his actual British accent, because his American accent is.
Bond knowledge just showed there.
There you go. And you haven't seen Skyfall or any of those, have you?
No. I just know there's that song that says Skyfall
by Adele, the Adele song that won the Oscar. That bugged me the most about Spectre was that really bad Sam Smith song won the Oscar for best song. I mean, I'm not a huge best song Oscar guy. That's not the category I glom onto, but it's still, it was not a very good song. There were better songs in movies.
I mean, 3-6 Mafia has an Oscar best song.
They do.
So the bar's not that high.
It's true. It's a stupid category anyway. It just takes up a lot of time. Like, they have to perform every single one of them, and.
Well, but, jumping ahead here quick, just, like Celine Dion's song that she wrote for Deadpool.
Right.
That'd be a perfect example of something that should be in that category.
I would love for that to be in that category. I wonder if it will. I wonder if it's good enough.
It's Celine Dion. It's a great song, I think. At least it's called Ashes.
It's a good song. I'm not gonna put it on in my car while I'm driving to work in the morning, but it's
not My Heart Will Go On. Obviously, not anything can top that, but it's pretty good.
It's kind of not used in this. Well, we are getting ahead of ourselves. We're gonna talk about Deadpool.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But yeah, so I'm excited to see Danny Boyle direct this. I'm a big fan of his. We talked about Steve Jobs last week. He directed Steve Jobs. He also did Slumdog Millionaire, which a lot of people poo-poo, and that was a best picture winner back in 2008. I enjoyed that movie. It's certainly not a memorable film. I haven't revisited it since I watched it the first time, but Danny Boyle has a unique style, so I'm interested to see it. I'm also waiting for the day that we get a Christopher Nolan Bond. I would love to see what Christopher Nolan would do with James Bond.
That would be awesome.
Indeed.
So I think something that's very relevant considering the current climate, especially with Harvey Weinstein being sentenced to prison, is Charlize Theron has been cast as Megyn Kelly in the Roger Ailes biopic.
Yeah. This was a little bit of a shocker to me. I don't know. I didn't know they were making a film about Roger Ailes so quick. I mean, this stuff happened last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it was. And for those that aren't familiar with what happened, you want to just run through a quick synopsis of that?
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was, if you don't know who the parties involved are, Megyn Kelly used to work for Fox News, the Fox News channel. Currently, she has a role, I believe, with the Today Show. And Roger Ailes was the once chairman of the Fox News channel, and he was accused by several women of sexual assault, sexual harassment, various things. And Megyn Kelly, I don't know 100% the whole story. Somebody, I probably should have done a little bit of research on it. But Megyn Kelly was the one who stood up for the victims and had some nasty things to say about Roger Ailes, as she probably should have. But she ended up getting fired from Fox News and then ended up catching on. Did she get fired or did she resign? I can't remember the exact details of that, but
well, she was pressured, I believe, to resign. I don't think she did, and she had also said that Roger Ailes had tried to kiss her a couple times during some meetings. She was able to get away.
Okay.
And then when Gretchen Carlson came out and made the first sexual abuse allegations, Fox pressured Megyn Kelly to defend Roger, which of course she refused to do, and and here we are. So I think it could have some interesting twists there. And I'm glad all this stuff is coming to light.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of interesting how she defended all the women that accused him, and Fox, which I don't think is a surprise to a lot of people, wasn't happy about that.
Right. And this is perfect casting. I mean, Charlize Theron is a terrific actress. She looks the part even.
Fantastic actress.
They kind of look alike too. I think this more of just kind of shocked me as, number one, I didn't know they were making this movie, but there's been a lot of these movies lately that we've seen, like Patriots Day or stuff that has happened of recent events. I think they got Zero Dark 30 out real quick after the whole thing with Osama bin Laden went down back in 2011. I think 2 years later or something like that. I think that they got that movie out.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then so this is very current, and I think it's going to stay current with the Me Too movement and all this kind of stuff. So it should be interesting to see how the rest of the cast fills out. If they cast somebody to play Roger Ailes, or if they're just gonna make it kind of a story about Megyn Kelly or the victims or what have you. I just hope they do it right. A lot of these stories I feel like can sometimes be a little ham-fisted or leaning one way or another, and you might lean one way and somebody else might lean the other way. I just hopefully it's a good movie, and hopefully it stays a little bit apolitical with this type of scenario, though I'm sure it's pretty hard to not write some kind of political lean into a movie like this.
And I think it'll be good. I think it'll be pretty fast-paced. From the time that the first accusation came out with the lawsuit, it was only 15 days later that he was done at Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they'll do a lead-in, kind of what the backstory was, and then, I think it's going to be a movie in the vein of Spotlight or
Sure.
The Post. Kind of the background events and then the lead up to what happened, and both were fantastic stories that needed to be told. So.
Right.
It should be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and there's even a little bit off topic of this particular one, but I know they're making a movie about the Harvey Weinstein stuff and the two ladies who were working for the New York Times, I think it was, that broke that story. So that's another one too. That's a timely thing that'll probably turn out to be something like a Spotlight, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm sure John Goodman will be playing Harvey Weinstein.
I don't know about that. I don't know
kidding.
that they'll cast Harvey Weinstein in a movie. I think they'll probably leave him off screen.
That would be kind of weird, though, wouldn't it?
If they cast John,
just in general, people that have worked for him even as recently as last year, all of a sudden you're in a movie about him and all that kind of stuff would be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, you never thought you'd see yourself on screen, and then there you are in this movie.
Don't be a shitbag.
That's right. All right. Well, what else? What else?
In happier news, and I will confess, I don't know as much about this as you do, but Jake Gyllenhaal is in talks to play Mysterio in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. which I'm
Yeah.
very much looking forward to.
You know what I was wondering the other day, actually, when this dropped? The first thing that went to my mind was, that's great casting. Some of the comics I've read, I don't know much about Mysterio, actually. I know he's a goofy looking villain.
He's very, very mysterious.
Well, hopefully. I mean, if that would go well with the name. No, he's got he's a weird character design. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, if you look at a picture and you'd be like, how are they going to pull that off? But, Jake Gyllenhaal is but in the things that I've read, he's kind of like, supposedly he's like some kind of weirdo villain, which if you've seen Nightcrawler, it even kind of hypes me up a little bit more when you say that he's going to be playing a weirdo. And I would love to see him kind of sink back into that type of role where he's just playing
really underrated.
Nightcrawler, yeah,
underrated
robbed.
Performance. I thought he was
absolutely
robbed. I agree.
Yeah, but anyway, I was thinking about how are they going to market this movie, and without getting into, it's been out for a month. I mean, we can spoil a little bit of Infinity War at this point. If you haven't seen Infinity War,
if you haven't seen Infinity War, we're gonna spoil something.
So I mean, given the events, and we won't go specific spoilers, but given the events of Infinity War at the end of the film, how are they going to market this movie? Because they're going to be shooting this movie soon. I don't know, and it's because it's slated for a July release, I believe, next year. So this is going to be the first movie out of the gate after Avengers 4. So, I'm going to be real curious. I mean, are we not going to get how can you have a trailer for this come out even before Avengers 4? Because we're assuming, that at the end of Avengers 4, everything's going to be great and we're going to have Spider-Man obviously back. I don't think this is going to take place in the past. That wouldn't make sense if you're trying to propel the story forward. So I would just want, and I trust the brass over at Marvel to do their thing. It's just a curious proposition to think how they're going to market this new Spider-Man movie.
Well, I would think trailer-wise they would do what they did with I forget which Avengers it was, if it was a Thor or what, where Thor wasn't or where he had his eye or didn't show the eye or whatever that was. You know what I mean? Before people knew that he lost his eye. Right, they
kept a lot of the major Infinity War trailers away from the public till after Ragnarok was released, because in Ragnarok,
that's what
Thor
it was.
obviously loses his eye. Spoilers for Thor Ragnarok. And, Marvel is good at building the hype train, so I'm sure that as soon as, what was it? Was it Tuesday? The Tuesday following the release of Infinity War, they had a brand new trailer for Ant-Man. So
Ant-Man.
Yeah, so which I'm also looking forward to seeing, and maybe they'll tie some stuff in with that too. But I was just curious about how they're going to market this movie. But kind of back to the casting, this is great casting. Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll put Jake Gyllenhaal in anything. I will watch him do whatever he wants to do. Stronger, of course, last year he was great in that. There was a movie on Netflix a lot of people saw. It was kind of divisive. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Max, but it's called Okja. He's great in that. The movie itself is it's okay, but he's great in it. He's always giving 110% to every role that he does, and I have no doubt that he'll kill it in this. So, and Vulture's coming back too. That was the other part of that news. So hopefully.
I think that's exciting, and kind of segueing into something I spend a lot of time doing is watching trailers. So I'm very excited to see that come out. We had some awesome trailers. A lot of trailers dropped this week. One of the first ones I saw is shock and awe about the journalists investigating when the Bush administration said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, as their excuse for the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And this is not the typical movie you see about the Iraq War. Everything you usually see is America, rah, rah, rah. And this one is shaping up to be kind of, well, hold on now. Maybe something's not right here.
This goes kind of along with that the Roger Ailes biopic that we were just talking about. I mean, these topical movies that they're bringing to the forefront. This is another one that looks like it's going to be more like a spotlight type movie where they're it's focusing on the journalism and focusing on the talent of the people involved. It's got a good cast. James Marsden is in this. He's really impressed me in Westworld the last couple of seasons. And then of course Rob Reiner's directing it. He's usually hit and miss. I don't know if you saw LBJ last year. That was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson's fine. A little bit sugar coated. This doesn't look like it's going to be sugar coated though. This looks like they're diving headfirst into this, and Rob Reiner's a pretty political guy, so he looks like he's diving headfirst into this, and it looks great. The trailer was great. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I agree, and they've got an A-list cast. I think it's gonna be, if nothing else, something that's gonna make
absolutely.
you think. Another one I saw that kind of came out of nowhere. I hadn't heard any hype for it. Is Christopher Robin, but not in the classic sense of it. In this one, Christopher Robin is grown up. Christopher Robin's being played by Ewan McGregor. Most of you know him from the ill-fated Star Wars prequels, among other things. So Christopher Robin's all grown up. He's lost all sense of his imagination. Pooh and his friends from the 100 Acre Woods re-enter Christopher's life to help him find it again. I don't know if it's something that I'd be excited about necessarily from just a general perspective. But I mean, I grew up watching Winnie the Pooh, and this could be a really cool live-action reimagination of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, man, I'm hyped for this. I had... so this brings back a lot of memories for me. I had a lot of Winnie the Pooh VHS tapes when I was a kid, and I wore the crap out of those things. And I love that some of the original voices are coming back.
Yes, I
that's
that right
Jim
away.
Cummings, of course, who voices Pooh and, of course, Tigger. But I like some of the other talent they have in this movie. You mentioned Ewan McGregor, who's great casting as like an older Christopher Robin. One of the best casting, I think, in the movie is because it's just perfect, is Brad Garrett as Eeyore. How perfect is that casting? The guy,
Yes.
of course, he's Brad Garrett, of course, from How I Met Your Mother. Everybody Loves Raymond. Of course, he was Ray's brother in that, Ray Romano's brother in that show.
Just kind of
man,
dopey,
he's just
slow
perfect casting.
boy.
You know who else would have been perfect casting as Patrick Warburton? I feel like he would have. He would have nailed Eeyore.
I thought that's who it
I did
was
too,
at
and
first.
then I
Patrick
thought,
Warburton
no, that's
would've
Brad
been
Garrett
good.
for sure. But no, Brad Garrett is great casting for this. This movie looks really, really. I don't really have much to say about this, other than I'm really excited from a nostalgia standpoint. August release date's a little interesting. I'm sure it'll make a lot of money. I think it'll be a surprise hit for Disney. August, you can strike gold a lot of times in August with a good movie. So especially Disney, they know how to market stuff. So I'm really excited for this movie.
Yeah, I think that could be cool, and kind of talking about nostalgia in a different direction. If you haven't seen the trailer for the Happy Time Murders yet, see it. They're currently in a lawsuit with Sesame Street.
Yeah,
So
I just read that today. Actually, it's funny that you bring that up.
it's starring Melissa McCarthy. I kind of dumped on her last week or our last show. She does look pretty good in this. So basically, in this universe, puppets are inferior to humans. A private puppet investigator named Phil Phillips reunites with Connie Edwards, played by Miss McCarthy, to find a serial killer who murdered Phil's brother and is now targeting the cast members of the 1980 television series The Happy Time Gang, which anybody with a brain can obviously see as the Muppets on the Sesame Street type stuff. And the reason they're being sued is because at the end it says no Sesame, all Street, and Sesame Street was not too excited about that. However, the movie is being directed by Brian
That's my favorite
Hansen.
part.
What do you make of that? For those of you that don't know, he's the son
Jim
of Mark
Henson.
Henson, correct?
Yeah.
Jim Henson, who is obviously
that's my favorite, my absolute favorite part about this all. And you even got some of the original voice cast. Bill Beretta, who used to do the voice of the Swedish Chef, and even did the voice of a Swedish Chef in the Muppets. That Jason Segel, I believe it was Amy Adams was in that movie as well. So he did the voice of Swedish Chef, and that he's actually doing the voice of this Phil Phillips character, this cop that you see in the trailer. Doing puppet weird puppet things, but we'll maybe get there in a second. But yeah, man, I love that Brian Hanson's involved with this. It just kind of shows you. I like the self-awareness almost, and that's never going to take away anything that this guy has done. You look at Muppet Treasure Island. There's so many great Muppet movies. I don't know that if you watched them at all, but I watched them a lot when I was a kid. You got Muppet Treasure Island and all these different great Muppets movies. I love that Brian Hanson's involved, and this is also a terrific cast. Like you said, Melissa McCarthy, and we'll get into this a little bit later with some other actor. And it kind of goes back to what I said about Life of the Party last week, is that do the garbage. And I'm not saying Life of the Party is garbage, but Melissa McCarthy has done her fair share of garbage. I think we can all agree on that. But do the garbage and do stuff like this. This looks hilarious. This trailer, I read about it on Twitter, and I read that it was going to be in front of Deadpool 2. And I thought, I'm not watching this.
Perfect movie.
Exactly. And I'm going to save my experience to watch this movie watch this trailer with the crowd. And man, I'm happy I did that. This trailer is so funny. Particularly, the scene at the end is say whatever you want about that scene at the end. It's hilarious. I'm usually not into the gross out gags. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think we've talked about that before. It's so funny. And of course, Maya Rudolph is in here popping up again. Cannot understate how funny Maya Rudolph is. I'm a huge fan of hers.
Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, Elizabeth Banks. Yep, she's in it. Was she in the trailer? I don't remember her in the trailer. Maybe they're keeping that one a secret.
I don't know. She's a burlesque dancer. I don't remember. I was mostly focused on the last scene. You'll know if you watch the trailer.
This is great, and I love this scene with Joel McHale coming up to him. He goes, "I'll have your badge for this. I'm part of the FBI." And the guy goes, "Yeah, what's that stand for? Fucking big idiot." I love that line. It's so simple, but it's great. It's
And like you said, I don't find that disrespectful to the Muppets at all. It's like the R-rated version of the Muppets.
Right.
You know, it's gonna be funny. I think it's gonna be funny.
It's either gonna be really funny or it's gonna be bad. But I see it being I see it being the former. I think it's going to be really, really great.
I agree. And speaking of movies, I think could be great. I know you're not as hyped up about this one as I am. Mowgli. This is the movie directed by Andy Serkis. We did just have a Jungle Book live action that came out. This was actually, I believe, in production earlier. Was set to be released earlier. Got pushed back. I think this is going to be awesome. It tells the story of Mowgli raised by wolves in India. It's a different telling than the Jungle Book. It's being billed as the darkest telling of this story ever produced. The voice cast to me is probably the best that's ever been assembled for a Jungle Book telling. You've got Baloo, Andy Serkis, who's the director. I love Andy Serkis. Bagheera is being played by Christian Bale, and I love that Shere Khan, the fearsome tiger, is being voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. And for me, if the voice doesn't fit the character, I don't like it. I think Benedict Cumberbatch's voice, just from the little audio we heard of Shere Khan, really fits him. I know you're not as sold on this. I think I trust Andy Serkis. I believe in Andy Serkis. He is the best motion capture person in the business. And I don't think there's anybody better to direct a movie like this. So, what are you thinking? I'm thinking it could be really good. I'm hopeful. I'm putting my trust in Andy Serkis.
I mean, there's no doubt that it'll be a visual spectacle. I don't know how much of this is motion capture. I know obviously all of Jon Favreau's Disney Jungle Book was mostly CGI. Probably the most technologically advanced film ever was Favreau's other Jungle Book. But you're right, this has an excellent cast. I like Christian Bale. Kate Blanchett, I believe, is also in the part of the cast as the snake.
I don't remember what the snake's name is.
It's
Ka. And also, I just looked up. It actually all the characters are motion capture.
That's it, and that's kind of what makes it unique for me, because a lot of people will look at this and they'll think, well, we just had this Jungle Book movie, and they'll be confused. This actually was set to be released in 2016. I believe it's been in the can for a while, and they were just kind of when Favreau released theirs, and Disney made a bunch of money on that. I think Andy Serkis, decided, well, let's focus on my other directorial effort, which came out last year. His directorial debut, actually, the movie Breathe, which I think is available on Amazon Prime if you guys want to check that out. It's a decent film.
For those of you that don't know, Andy Serkis is most famous, I think, to most people as being Gollum in The Lord of the Rings.
He's got a lot of... He's been involved in a lot of projects.
He's been in a lot of stuff. Planet of the Apes. He's been in a lot of stuff.
You want to know what movie I saw him in for the first time that wasn't mocap or anything like that? a little movie with Jennifer Garner called 13 Going on 30. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't. I am aware of it, and my follow-up question is,
I've seen it because it's a pretty decent movie. I'm not gonna hide behind it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I certainly don't own it. I would probably never watch it again.
That's gotta be a lie. I bet
you've seen my. You can come take a look at my collection, but I have no traces of 13 going on.
You know, it's kind of funny that you bring that up. I see the new thing on Twitter. Some girl posted about, like, imagine it's in 15 years, your kid's up to bat, your husband's coaching third or whatever, living my best life, and everyone's like, why do all these girls want to be, like, in their 40s raising kids? And so they're spawned a bunch of memes and stuff.
But no, I was just thinking about that the other day, actually. But no, this looks great. I mean, visually it looks great. You're right. Cumberbatch is a great choice for Shere Khan. Of course, Idris Elba, who we talked about previously, was the voice of Shere Khan for Favreau's Jungle Book, which I also think was terrific. Yeah, you're right. The voice has to fit the character, and especially if you're going to make these characters lifelike. If it's an animated movie, I'm fine with, I don't pay as much attention to the voiceover work. But if you're putting these characters in a situation where they're going to look like you're actually watching a tiger speak to a little boy, then yes, the voice needs to match that sentiment. So I think yeah, and I liked the trailer. I didn't love it, and I'm still excited to see it. I'm gonna go see it, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully you're right. I liked what Andy Serkis did as a director with his last movie, so it's be interesting to see what he'll do with this one.
Yeah, and I'm not too concerned about the fact that we just had a Jungle Book come out. It's a different retelling of it.
That's right.
It's art. It's just a different form. Excuse me. The other movie I wanted to talk about, I'm really excited about. One of my favorite bands, and leading actor is someone I think that's very good. That
hasn't popped yet.
Gotten a lot of play, but has been good ever since. Hasn't popped yet. He was really good in Band of Brothers, I believe it was. He got his start in. He was also in Dunkirk.
Was not. Rami Malek
very
was
good
in
actors.
Dunkirk.
Rami Malek in.
I'm 100% sure that Rami Malek was not in Dunkirk.
Are you sure about
that?
I
also think he was in The Pacific, not Band of Brothers. 0 for 2.
You're correct. He was in The Pacific.
Good work.
I should have done my research on that.
This is why we're the average guys.
Shut up. Anyway.
He is.
Yeah. Anyway, Rami Malek's a great actor. So this is about Queen from their formation up into probably, as someone who didn't live through it, probably one of the greatest rock and roll performances in history, Queen's 1985 performance at Live Aid, which is just iconic Mercury. I'm really excited about it. The director, Bryan Singer, was hired. He got fired because
he went crazy.
He basically didn't show up, and everybody hated him. Yeah, so now Dexter Fletcher's on. I don't know much about Dexter Fletcher. There's a lot of controversy around this film. Brian May and Roger Taylor, original members of Queen, are serving as the film's producers. Some rumors came out that May said this movie wasn't true. Some blogger looking for 15 seconds of fame said that the movie was het washing the story, which het washing would be a heterosexual person trying to turn Freddie Mercury into a heterosexual male. Obviously, he was very gay, and I'm really hoping they show that side of him. I don't think a movie's really addressed that before with a famous musician and kind of their personal life. So I'm really hoping they get into that.
Definitely
what are you thinking?
Cover that. I think just because it wasn't in the first trailer, it doesn't mean it's not going to be. And this is a teaser trailer, it's a mashup. I like the mashup of all the different Queen songs, the more popular Queen songs. The design looks great. He looks not so much the long-haired version of Freddie Mercury, but when you get to that Live Aid era, he looks the part. I don't know if he did any of his own singing or anything like that. I would imagine he probably didn't. It's Freddie Mercury is one of the more iconic rock and roll frontman to be there. So. I like going back to the trailer a little bit. I really like this trailer. There's a couple of great lines of dialogue in it. Dexter Fletcher, to my knowledge, his only movie that he's directed was Eddie the Eagle. So, it'll be interesting to see what he can do with this. It's got a November release date. So that means, hopefully they think they have something here with this as far as, pushing it for Oscars. And you talk about Rami Malek. Hopefully he does pop because he have seen him in some things. He's great in a movie called Short Term 12, where he plays a counselor, a youth counselor. And yeah, I mean, he's a great actor. I know he's famous for Mr. Robot. I haven't watched any of that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Freddie Mercury has a really, really interesting story, and I think Rami Malek looks just like him.
I agree.
Especially that scene where they're performing at Live Aid. I think he looks just like Freddie Mercury. So hopefully it'll be good. It's one of those things that's hard to tell right off the bat as a teaser trailer, but I'm really excited for the second trailer. Kind of see what goes on. I did see, look into the cast here. Aaron McCusker is listed as playing Jim Hutton, Mercury's boyfriend. So I think we will see some of that personal side of him, which is doing Freddie Mercury
absolutely
the right way.
And Sacha Baron Cohen was actually attached to this at one point as well to play Freddie Mercury, and that kind of fell off because of Brian May and who was the other one that you mentioned? Name escapes me. Brian Taylor?
I cannot tell you.
A couple members of the band.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You mentioned the controversy surrounding it. Sacha Baron Cohen left this project out of fear that they wouldn't get to make the movie they wanted to make, and there would be interference from the band. So that's another little Roger Taylor. Yep. Sure.
Yes.
But yeah, this is a good trailer. I enjoy the trailer, and I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more from it and seeing the movie.
I agree. Something that I thought was interesting is, if we take a look at the box office for a second, Solo, which we'll get into talking about that in a minute here, was projected. I think the early projections were 157 million.
It was higher than that, depending on who you talk to. Yeah, it was as high as like 187. I think is what I had seen.
Yeah, and they really disappointed. 4,300 theaters, they grossed 103 million, which is not bad, but yikes! What do you make of that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that are really interesting to me. Number one is I don't know that this has anything to do, like people are saying, I don't think it has anything to do with the controversy that was behind the scenes of this. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we review Solo. But I don't think this has anything to do with the controversy. I think it's just more of a thing here that happened with nobody really cared about this movie. You talk to a lot of people, they weren't super hyped for it like they were. Even Rogue One. Obviously people are hyped up about the saga films. But nobody that I talked to or nobody that I know was really like, yeah, we got to go see Solo opening weekend. It was like, yeah, I'll see it eventually type thing. So,
well, it's the movie that nobody wanted. That's how I felt about Rogue One. You watch it, okay, it's a fine
people
movie. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but I like it as the darker telling. But I mean, I don't know. I thought Forrest Whitaker was terrible. I could have done without the Temple guys.
Sure.
Just threw that kind of shit in there. Like, okay, I guess we're just making this up. I digress. But I think it's the same type of thing. It's like, well, okay, cool. It's a Star Wars movie, but it's not the Star Wars movie. It's not, it's not 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One of the main Star Wars movies that everybody likes to see. I think Solo and Rogue One, to a lesser extent, were just aimed more at the hardcore Star Wars fans, and I think that's probably why you're seeing some of the numbers dip.
$103 million is a lot of money. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But when you're projected to make 150, and the other thing you take into account here too is we have a holiday weekend here in the States. So a lot of times they'll count that fourth day. So that 103 million is over the 4-day weekend. So in other words, they added $20 million, roughly just under $20 million from the 3 to the 4-day weekend. So the Sunday gross had it at 84 million, which is massively disappointing for a movie that was projected to open in the 150s. They weren't. I think when people saw that, they knew they weren't going to add another $60 million to the Monday screenings. So it's disappointing for Solo. I think the people who saw it are going to see it. The other thing that I think is the case is look at what else is in theaters right now. Never in the history of movies have you ever seen this many huge movies opening, week after week. You've got Deadpool 2, right? A franchise that's worldwide. This movie, the second one is just about to gross 500 million worldwide. It made another, looks like 43 million over the weekend, 55 if you count the 4-day weekend, which we do. So 55 million, it made another 55. And you have that in only just its second week of release. You also have Avengers Infinity War, which is now the biggest opening of all time, made another 21 million this week. And you have things like Book Club and Life to the Party, which get that that female demographic. We don't mean to stereotype, but they definitely pull in that female demographic. You get a group of and I know this to be true in people in my circle. You get you have ladies' night or whatever you want to call it, and this is evidenced by that. Book Club Max dropped 8% from last week to this week. So. I'm sorry. I was looking at the 4-day numbers. Still, it dropped 25%. Unheard of for a movie, and this is only in its second week of release. Book Club, and it has pretty good reviews. So I haven't seen it yet.
How did Show Dogs make 4.5 million? When I saw the trailer for that, I thought it looked like the worst movie ever made. I didn't even know
what it was. And then when you were here, Marissa was saying that you guys, we saw this trailer, and I thought, what? I've never even heard of this.
It's like a bunch of shitty voice actors with shitty animation with, I'm sure, is a shitty story. And there's just there's those classic, I can't even think of any, but like those classic stupid cliche dog show jokes, if you will. And I saw it and I was like, why did this movie need to be made? Who was sitting there like, hey, we gotta make this movie?
A couple of other box office things that I kind of wanted to touch on. Avengers. Infinity War nearing 2 billion. Right now, after that weekend gross, sitting at about 1.9 billion. These numbers are according to Box Office Mojo, which is kind of the authority in box office. So yeah, almost $2 billion for Avengers Infinity War. That made a 40% drop. Made another $20 million this weekend. Couple of other things. Black Panther quickly rising up, almost at 700 million domestically. And it's this movie came out in February, and this is what's so amazing. These are like Avatar type numbers. Black Panther's in its 15th week of release, and it is at number.
It's still in 14, theaters out here.
Made $465,000 over that 4-day weekend. Actually finished at number 14, $567,000 for the 4-day weekend in its 15th week of release. That is incredible. I don't know where it sits. On the all-time domestic chart. I'll take a look. It actually sits, it looks like number 3, just behind Star Wars The Force Awakens, which made $936 million here in the States, so it won't catch that. And it obviously isn't probably going to catch Avatar either. It's amazing to me that this movie is still making money in theaters because the Blu-ray is out. The Blu-ray is out. You can go to a store and you can pay $22 for the Blu-ray. People are going to the theater still and seeing this thing. It's incredible.
You can
literally own it, and people are going to the theater and seeing this movie still, which is absolutely incredible.
I will add that Star Wars has a long way to go to even break even. They spent $250 million,
and that's not even. It'll make its budget back. I have no doubt about that.
It will, and obviously the $103 million is just domestic over the weekend, but.
It made 168 million worldwide, so it really sputtered worldwide. Only 65 million overseas, including only 10.1 million in China, which you've seen a very steady decrease in the Chinese box office of Star Wars. I saw that on Twitter the other day. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I think it was 50 million in China that Force Awakens made on its opening weekend, and it slowly decreased every single new Star Wars movie being released. So. A little tidbit there, but any other stuff on the box office that stood out for you? How about a documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg finishing at number 10 last week?
I saw that. I haven't seen it yet. I've heard it's very good. Something that did kind of stick out to me is sitting there at number 12, was 10 last week, is Super Troopers 2.
Yeah, it's making its money, man.
I think they've made 30 million so far, and I think their budget was like what, 6 or 7 million. I mean, it was crowdfunded.
No, it ended up being, I think most of it was crowdfunded, and I thought I heard Eric Stolhansky, who of course is a Minneapolis, Minnesota native, who plays Rabbit in the movie. He had talked when he was on one of the sports channels here on KFan in Minnesota, talked about the crowd money was to raise a certain amount of money so that they could get a budget from Fox Searchlight. So the actual production budget of this movie is listed at...
Fox did kick in money after that.
Yeah. So the actual production budget of that movie is about $13.5 million, it looks like. So, but no, it's made its money back. It's doubled up. So yeah, it's crazy box office. But and maybe that's a discussion we should have on a future show. Is that these movies are coming out. What kind of legs will Solo have? You have in just 2 weeks from now, you have The Incredibles 2, which is going to do huge money at the box office.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have, and the other thing too is don't count out Jurassic World, because Jurassic World is going to do some big money as well.
Dude,
because
your trailer looks a lot better.
I agree. Before The Force Awakens came out that year, Jurassic World had totally shocked the world by having the highest grossing opening of all time. So some real fascinating stuff at the box office coming up here. So many big movies. I mean, a movie like Black Panther would have never opened in February 10 years ago. And look how, it's making all this money. So the box office just fascinates me to some degree.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting seeing how that kind of stuff fluctuates. And this is how you vote with your wallet, though. Different types of movies you want to see, and that's how you do it.
That is...
Speaking of new movies...
Yeah, let's get to we had covered a lot of stuff today. So last week I reviewed Life of the Party with Melissa McCarthy. If you missed that, go check out our other episode.
Oh yeah. I mean, check the podcast out. Don't check the movie out.
Dick. So this week we actually are going to be reviewing 2 movies together because we've actually both seen these movies. So go us. We're killing it. So we'll start with the most recent one. And if you didn't listen to our first show and you're catching this show, the way Max and I are going to be reviewing new movies, we'll do it on a scale of see it, rent it, or skip it. So that will be we'll review a movie, and at the end of our review, we'll each give our own take as to whether you should rush out and go see the movie, if you should wait till you should rent it, Redbox, Netflix, what have you, digital, or skip it means just don't see it at all. So with all that said, let's talk about Solo, Max. What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I think that the early criticisms I heard about it, that it was the pacing was kind of jarring and that it was a slow start. I think all that was true. I think there's a lot of frustration from Star Wars fans, but I'm gonna call bullshit on that. A lot of people have said that it's not a true Star Wars movie. They ruined Han Solo. That's not the Han Solo I knew growing up. Well, it is. It is the Han Solo you knew growing up because it was written by the man who I would almost say had more to do with the Star Wars universe than George Lucas, Lawrence Kasdan. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I believe he wrote all 3 originals.
For all 3 of the originals, he was there for the prequels, and he had a hand in the new ones as well, I believe. I thought it was.
I'm not sure.
I'd have to check on that. I thought it was a good movie. Yeah. I don't know how to say his name, but Alden Reich. How do you say?
Alden Ehrenreich.
Alden
Ehrenreich.
Holy shit, that's a lot of vowels. Alden Ehrenreich. I'm just gonna call him Solo from now on. I thought he was really good.
He's great. Yeah.
He has the cockiness. I thought Emilia Clarke was really good, and I think she is going to be underrated. She's obviously really good in Game of Thrones. Everybody knows that as Khaleesi, but I think this is kind of a breakout movie for her. She was brilliant, and obviously I love Donald Glover. He was fantastic as Lando Calrissian. I liked it. It's one of those movies I wouldn't rate it any higher than any of the 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, any of those. But I think it's the best of like the Rogue One prequels, all that kind of stuff. Personally, I think it's a movie. You sit down, have a beer, some popcorn. It's enjoyable. It's like a Star Wars action movie, I think. And we're not. I won't say what happens at the end, but very interesting scene at the end.
Yeah, we won't spoil anything. Maybe we'll do a little segment, either maybe at the end of this episode, or maybe we'll do it next week. In our next show, maybe we'll do a little spoiler discussion on Rogue. I'm sorry, Solo. It's funny you mentioned the standalones. I actually, after watching this, I spent a little bit of time earlier this morning, and I actually rewatched Rogue One. And I enjoyed Rogue One, and I had only seen it the one time. I saw it in theaters, and I thought, it's okay. I wrote a review for it. I think I gave it like 8.4 out of 10, which at the time, based on my feelings, I thought probably was a little high, but I went with it. And I rewatched Rogue One this morning, and I do end up, in the end, liking Rogue One more at this point than Solo. I think there is more interesting things at play in Rogue One. I like the tone of Rogue One a little bit better because I think it sticks more true to its tone. And I ended up actually thinking about this movie in terms of the other Star Wars movie. So I haven't seen the Clone Wars. I know that technically counts as a theatrical release, but I kind of ran down my top 10 of Star Wars films, and I actually have Solo on my top 10 at number 8, and I actually have Revenge of the Sith in front of it, and I'll tell you why. I actually really enjoy Revenge of the Sith the more stuff I see from it. They've been on some of the cable channels. It's been on TNT, TBS, all these different things. I've watched bits and pieces of it. I think people rip on Revenge of the Sith a little bit too much because it is part of that prequels. And don't get me wrong, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, certainly at the bottom. You could put them in either order, although I personally think Phantom Menace is the worst.
If you do want to watch them, if you go on YouTube, someone very kindly took out all the scenes between Amidala and Anakin. They do play a lot better that way.
Right, and I think even it was at the Topher Grace edit where he did the
I think it was the Topher Grace edit.
He edited them all into like one movie or something like that, I think.
Yeah,
anyway,
he's a huge Star Wars fan.
I like Revenge of the Sith the more I see it. I know we have a friend who I think is thinks along the same way we talked about John last week, and we need to have him on here and talk a little bit of Star Wars sometime, because he definitely knows his shit when it comes to Star Wars, more so than either of us. And I think he's kind of in the same boat as me with this. I like Revenge of the Sith a lot. It has some great moments. However, in 8th position on a top 10 for me, it's leaps and bounds better than Attack of the Clones. It's leaps and bounds better than Phantom Menace. I have it at 8 because I hold the originals in high regard, and I hold The Last Jedi in high regard. I know a lot of people don't. I love The Last Jedi. And I hold Force Awakens in high regard because I enjoy that movie too, even though, yes, it is a little bit of a rehash of A New Hope. I enjoyed the shit out of this movie. I had such a good time watching this, and I had no expectations. I was one of the people who was like, I'm not really into it. I don't need to see a Han Solo movie. And now they announced they're doing this Boba Fett thing, and who cares? I don't care about any of these characters. I want to see new stuff. Show me new stuff. And that's why I think a lot of people were kind of disgusted with the idea of this movie. And then, of course, all of the controversy behind the scenes, which I'm not going to go into great detail about, but I'll talk about it a little bit. Essentially, if you don't know, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who directed the Lego Movie and both 21 and 22 Jump Street, were originally hired to be the directors of this film. They weren't shooting the movie that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy wanted. So they shit-canned Lord and Miller, and they brought in Ron Howard. And there's all this controversy about, what did you think you were going to get? Blah, blah, blah. We're not going to talk about any of that, but I do think it's relevant to bring that up as far as expectations go. So I think a lot of people tempered their expectations of, they're bringing on Ron Howard. He's done a lot of kind of boring, vanilla movies that are just kind of like there. Obviously A Beautiful Mind is a terrific movie. But he did all the Da Vinci Code trilogy movies, and those are terrible. I enjoyed almost everything about this movie. Alden Ehrenreich, you're right, is terrific as Solo. I really felt like he was Solo. He's great. And of course, what can you say about Donald Glover? I mean, this guy is just killing it in everything he does. I haven't watched Atlanta. I've heard great things about it. I want to check it out now. he's perfect casting as Lando. Like when they were like, yeah, we're casting Lando Calrissian, I was like, I don't care about that character. We're casting Donald Glover. All right, I'm in 100%.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. And Howard does bring a lot of his Ron Howard charm and fun to this movie. The couple things that I had issues with, the droid, it seems like we're doing this comic relief droid thing in all these Star Wars movies, and it didn't work for me in this movie. L3 or whatever it is, the robot rights.
Yeah, I mean it was
thing.
It was alright.
I just didn't find it funny. It was kind of out of place, I felt like. And I'm actually on the opposite end of you. I thought this movie was paced very well. I thought everything that happens in the beginning of this movie is important because it sets up those stakes between Kira, who's obviously played by Emilia Clarke, and Han, and you get it. Like, you get why he's doing it, and he's willing to do anything. So I mean, there is that kind of theme of he's got love for her. But at the same time, she doesn't want him to be dragged into this world that now she is a part of.
Well, and I think
without getting too many spoilers,
I think that's important to touch on because I think there's a lot of undertones in this movie that are missed. You know, you talk about Han Solo and his development. Well, without really spoiling anything. Okay, Han is younger. He's on this place where he's a prisoner, and he has a lover, I would say, and they're separated. He does a lot of things to get back to her, and upon getting back to her, things aren't the same, and I think that leads to his character becoming a lot more cynical,
right.
and kind of affects his outlook on everything. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that happens that you'll see that goes along with that, but I think that's a major undertone is that okay, I'm in love with this girl, I found her, everything's cool, and then it's like, well, hold on, everything's not cool.
Yeah, you see a little bit of idealism in the early days of Han Solo, where now, by the end of this film, you see that Han Solo that the guy who's trying to play tricks. And he even does it in the beginning of this movie. To some degree, he's Han Solo, throughout the entire movie. I mean, he plays that, the trick on Lady Proxima in the beginning of the film where he's like, this is a grenade, and
right.
It's, so, I mean, it's...
But
you see bits and pieces of Han Solo throughout this movie.
That is Han Solo. You watch him develop
right.
in the movie into the Han Solo that we all know.
Absolutely.
Why does he have to be the same guy when he's young?
Right.
You kind of see his experiences and how jaded he gets and the heartbreak and all that kind of stuff, and that all goes into making him the Han Solo that we see, in the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. A couple of other things I had with this movie are mostly nitpicks, and then we can move on and give our rating here. You can tell a lot of this movie was reshot because there's a lot of CGI in this movie. In the early parts of this movie, it looks to me, I don't know if you got the same feeling, but it just felt to me like there's lots of CGI. There didn't seem to be a lot of practical effects in this film, and not practical in the sense that I need big practical action set pieces. It just felt to me like you could almost tell that they scrapped a lot of shit and just thought, well, we'll CGI this in and this will be fine. And
honestly, I didn't really even notice that. To be honest, with you, that didn't bug me that much.
And maybe it's an interesting case study because maybe we don't notice that kind of stuff if you're not aware of the things in the background. Obviously, it didn't affect your viewing of it. And I wonder if, knowing what happened behind the scenes maybe jaded my opinion of that, of the film. I don't think it did. I still enjoy this movie a lot. I think it actually will move up my list as time goes on. I think the Star Wars movies, every time I see one of the Star Wars movies, I get a little something different out of it. And I think this one is certainly no stranger to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
I think it's a movie that if I watch it again, I think I'm probably going to like it even more the second time. Right. So I think you're going to get to see more details you may have missed.
And that was the thing with Rogue One. When I rewatched Rogue One, I thought, I did miss some stuff in here. There is some great stuff, and you're right, the Forrest Whitaker stuff isn't great. I actually like the Donnie Yen character and other things, but it's a movie that I appreciate more because I think it's the most grounded of the Star Wars movies. Rogue One, that is, in the way that it's made. But no, Solo is great. I'm going to say you should go see it. I think it's definitely worth a trip out to the theater if you haven't gone to see it already. Definitely worth the time.
Oh, I agree. Go see it. I really enjoyed it.
All right, awesome.
The other movie we're going to talk
go ahead.
about. No, I was just saying the other movie we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to put this out there because I don't think Riley agrees with me, but Deadpool 2, I thought it was better than the first one. Deadpool 2, the same cast is back. You add in Josh Brolin, who's a fantastic actor. I'm trying to remember the name of the woman who plays Domino.
Zazie Beetz.
Zazie Beetz, really good. I thought Deadpool.
She's also in Atlanta.
Oh, is she? Okay, I'll have to check that out. Deadpool 2, I thought is really good. It was not the plot I was expecting. There's some scenes right in the beginning that happened, and I was kind of like, holy fuck. What did they just do? And Ryan Reynolds is fantastic as always. He was born to be Deadpool.
Right, I agree.
The movie would not be what it is without him and his vision for the first two. And the director kind of wanted to make it a little more dark. Tim Miller actually left due to creative differences with Reynolds because Reynolds didn't want to deviate from the script, and it worked. And this is a rare case of a movie, a sequel, working the second time around. It's hilarious. I really enjoyed it. I thought the story, in my mind, the story was a little stronger than the first movie. I thought, not the first one wasn't good, but there's a number of scenes in there that the trailer sets you up for, and they do not go the way you think they're going to go. And I think that's a great part of the movie. They didn't reveal everything they had right away.
Right.
And there's some funny nods to the X-Men and that kind of stuff. And like usual, Ryan Reynolds rips down the fourth wall and talks to the audience, and it's funny. I really liked it. What'd you think?
Yeah, so I don't know where I stand right now. I feel like I've only actually seen the first Deadpool like 1.5 times. I've never really had the chance to go back and revisit it. So I can't really say right now. I'm not really comfortable saying that I like it better than the first one or I don't like it better than the first one. So I'll just say that this movie is really funny. I do think it falls. The film critic in me does say that it does fall from a little bit of sequelitis, where the gags, some of the gags, obviously I would say 90% of the gags are great. But there are some of the gags that do get a little tiresome. I think the meta humor didn't really work with me sometimes. And some of the different things with the digs at the DC universe. I don't care about that, but they put that in there for some fanboys who hate on DC because there's a stupid thing with Marvel people and DC people. But no, I think right away, until the opening credits of this movie, I thought, this isn't really grabbing my attention. It's the same way I felt about Super Troopers 2. For the first half hour or so of that movie, it didn't really grab my attention. I didn't think anything was funny, and then the last part of that movie is hysterical. With this movie, it took till the opening credits to get me there, and the opening credits in this movie are funnier than the first movie.
They are
hilarious. There's no doubt about that because it makes such funny use of that Celine Dion song. They go for this mocking James Bond type thing, which is absolutely fantastic. It's so funny. I can't get the opening credits out of my mind because they're just so hilarious.
They're very funny.
I also feel this way about this movie that I felt about Ted 2. And I think we've probably talked about this before, but that movie was 2 years old or 3 years old or whatever it is. The funniest gags in Ted 2 are funnier than the ones in Ted, the first one. And that's how I felt about this, that the best gags in this movie are funnier and more laugh out loud than the funniest gags in the first Deadpool. The scenes with Vanisher and Rob Delaney as Peter are fantastic. Some of the funny, absolutely hysterical stuff. And the one thing that I appreciate about this franchise is that, and it could be just, them talking, ducking the subject until maybe they get some plans as far as future things go. I like the fact that as of right now, they don't plan to make a third one. because I think after 2, I'm good with 2 Deadpool movies, right? I think this would get a little bit irritating with a 3rd one. I only say that
news for you.
Well, hold on a minute. I only say that because the first 15 minutes of this movie are proof of, or not 15 minutes, or whatever it is before the opening credits. The first part of this movie is okay. And that's what I feel like an entire Deadpool 3 would be, is because we've seen all these gags. And yes, there are ways to make this topical. I'm sure at some point something happened. There's some reference that they wanted to make. It's easy because all they have to do is you see Ryan Reynolds, his lips moving under the Deadpool costume, but all they would have to do is ADR any dialogue into that. They could get Ryan Reynolds in a recording studio and have him say something about, whatever, the something topical that happened 2 weeks ago before the movie comes out. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
right.
that way of, there's always that way of keeping these topical. I just think that the gag, and I feel like I'm underselling how much I liked this movie. We'll get to that in a second. I just think that the gag, for me, I'm good with 2 of them. I don't need to see a 3rd one. I would, however, watch like a X-Force movie that he's a part of, because it's not focusing entirely on Deadpool, whereas he's a side character. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say which is actually in the works. We're talking about the main characters for X-Force would, of course, be Deadpool, Cable, played by Josh Brolin, Domino, and Shatterstar, which, if you watch the movie, is interesting. And Ryan has talked about that, where, like you said, maybe the only way for Deadpool to grow from here is to do something else. And maybe that's X-Force, maybe it's an ensemble piece, maybe we'll see a crossover with Guardians of the Galaxy, who knows.
I do think you mentioned the story being a little bit better better than this time around. I find that this is and of course the movie pokes fun at its own plot. There's several times where Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool says, "Man, that's lazy writing," and things like that, which are funny gags, obviously, because it's very self-aware.
Right.
But when you really look at this as a whole, it's the same MacGuffin you have in every revenge story. It's the girl. Spoiler alert! It's not even a spoiler alert. This happens within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Morena Baccarin's character Vanessa dies, and that's what sets off the chain of events to lead Deadpool on his next adventure, which is great. The rest of the adventure is great. It doesn't just do the same thing again.
Well, I disagree.
It adds another layer to the character of Deadpool, because now he's dealing with this loss, and he can't grieve. Like he can't grieve in the way that he wants to grieve, and the way he wants to grieve is suicide. So he literally cannot even kill himself to escape the grieving. So I think that is an interesting aspect of this movie. I think that's an interesting thing that they explored, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed most about the movie. Not just the comedy and the screwball, the meta humor and stuff like that. Just that adding that extra layer to Deadpool makes it just that much better.
I agree, and I would disagree that it's the same plot as the first one. I think it's the first one was driven by a girl. I don't necessarily think the plot in Deadpool 2 was driven by a girl. Obviously, he's got the anguish and all that, but really...
But it is, though, because he's doing these things because when he... You know what? Let's just say, if you're listening to this, we're going to talk a little bit of spoilers about Deadpool 2. So starting right now...
Deadpool's not a movie. It doesn't matter if you know the whole plot. It's still hilarious.
So, right. So when he tries to kill himself, right? He sets he's laying on the barrels of fuel or whatever he's laying on, and he lights the match and blows himself up. She tells him to find his heart. So in a way, I think you're wrong. I think the entire movie does revolve around him doing something for her.
Well, it does, but it's not to rescue her and save her from something. It's to save himself.
But it is, though, because at the end of the movie, he saves her.
Wow, not really.
Kind of.
That's a stretch. It's the post-credits scene.
Sure, which is great. The post-credit scene is fantastic
with
the Green Lantern stuff, and of course him. Wolverine dropping in.
I was
a
surprised.
Scene, not...
Brad Pitt is also in this movie. You'll have to look very close to see him.
Yeah, we'll let you figure out who he is.
I'm surprised they did not feature Negasonic Teenage Warhead more.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that the scenes she was in with her girlfriend were funny, but I was surprised she was really barely in the movie.
Right. She shows up kind of at the very end when they're trying to right all the wrongs. But anyway, we'll get off the spoiler talk for a little bit. Yeah, you're right. Cable is great. This is a great villain, and I love the way that Brolin sells this, because in any other movie, the way Brolin plays Cable is cartoonish. You know what I mean? Like it's very like this. I'm Cable. You know, he talks in this really deep, kind of brooding voice. And I think in any other superhero movie, you'd look at that and be like, "What is this? This guy. This is, it's corny the way he's playing it." But because this is Deadpool, his portrayal of Cable is perfect for this movie, and he adds a little bit of the humor himself. Brolin's there to kind of ground the stuff too a little bit to keep the humor at bay to some degree, although there are a lot of jokes at Cable's expense. But yeah, I just love the way that Brolin played this, because it is so it's a self-aware villain in the fact that in any other superhero movie you wouldn't you'd be saying this villain sucks.
Well, I think too the sign of any good movie, especially superhero movies, when you can empathize with the villain.
Right.
It's not just like, this is the big bad dude here to kill everybody. Oh, he's so bad. But with Cable, you're like, all right, he's the bad guy, but I can kind of understand why he's the bad guy. I'm kind of on his side. I understand what he's gone through, and it's horrible, and it's not just like your classic. And you know me, I hate the classic, like, oh, this guy's super bad, let's go kill him, okay, boom, we're done.
Right.
I'm not saying that doesn't happen in this movie. I'm not going to tell you what happens in this movie, but I think he brings a lot of depth to the character, and I think the writers really gave that character a lot of depth. And it's not your typical superhero villain, and I think that's part of what makes the movie great, as well as the music that plays while they're fighting at the end. Holy fucking shit! Holy fucking shit! Holy fucking shit!
Yeah, check out the Deadpool 2 soundtrack, because there's some great stuff on there.
Ashes by Celine Dion. Speaking of the soundtrack, I just saw this. The film is unique. The film's score is the first film score to receive a parental advisory warning for explicit content. And the soundtrack includes a song by Celine Dion. So, I mean, if they don't win some type of Oscar for sound
they also,
or music or something, it's going to be robbery.
I found out today, or was it today or yesterday, I found out that they, Steve Aoki, there's a remix of there's a EDM remix of Ashes. Yeah, it's pretty great.
I love Steve Aoki. I'm going to have to find him.
Quickly, I want to shout out Julian Dennison, who plays the kid in this movie.
His first feature film.
It is not his first feature film.
Oh, fuck you, Wikipedia.
Julian Dennison was in a little movie called Hunt for the Wilder People. Do you know who directed this movie, Max?
No.
Hunt for the Wilder People is a Taika Waititi film, who, for those of you who don't know, just directed Thor Ragnarok and did a fantastic job with Thor Ragnarok.
I was reading about his character, not him.
Okay, yeah, and
so I fucked up, everybody.
Julian Dennison is in Taika Waititi's movie Hunt for the Wilder People. If you have not seen Hunt for the Wilder People, I implore you to check it out. It is so funny. It has Taika Waititi's great humor in it. Sam Neill is in it as well. But Julian Dennison is great in this movie as well. He's pretty funny.
He also he won the New Zealand Film Award for Best Supporting Actor for the 2013 film Shopping. I didn't look that up. I just knew that.
Never heard of that movie. You just knew that?
I just knew it.
Your phone is not in front of your face right now?
No,
is what you're saying?
I frequently watch different film circuits. New Zealand happened to be when I was watching the film circuit. I'm going to look at the Moroccan film scene next, probably.
Yeah, sure.
Jack
you know what? We're trying to establish credibility, and you're out here just lying to the people. That's not a way to establish credibility.
Well, whatever asshole's editing this Wikipedia page.
It's probably you.
Whatever.
Anyway.
Whatever.
Deadpool, Max, what do you think the people should do? Should they go see it? Should they rent it?
Tell you what, go see it, and then I'm gonna take one step further here and steal a Jeremy Johns thing. Go see it in the theaters, and then when you get back, rent it and get drunk and watch it.
There you go.
It's gonna be hilarious drunk as well.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it would be. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I've only seen it the one time. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it again as well. I would definitely also say, go see it. So, man, we might be over. We might be way over where we were last week. Last week we did an hour and a half, and we still got right now we're about an hour 15 in. So hopefully the people are still listening. But we've got 2 streaming picks also to talk about still.
Streaming picks of the week.
Yeah, hopefully we can get a sponsor for that. I would love to be like the what is it? What's the thing I was listening to the Thomson Reuters streaming picks of the week. No,
we'll take a page out of Marnie Gellner's book. After eating a hot Pizza Ranch pizza.
I like to watch my streaming pick of the week. So yeah, we've got 2, we got 1 great movie and we got 1 movie that my heat meter isn't on, but Max decided to pick that. We'll get to that in a minute.
It's kind of a thing to say.
So our streaming pick of the week, we'll start with, this is a movie on Netflix. Revolutionary Road is our first streaming pick of the week. This came out in 2008. This is my pick. It was directed by Sam Mendes, who directed the aforementioned Skyfall on this podcast. He also directed American Beauty and Road to Perdition. And the film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Kathy Bates, Richard Easton, Michael Shannon, David Harbour, and Catherine Hahn. And the film follows Frank Wheeler and his wife, whose name escapes me at the moment. I should have written it down. Of course, the Wheelers are played by DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Reteaming for the first time since Titanic, and they live in a 1950s suburban Connecticut. Frank works in New York City, takes the train every day, and the couple sort of is looked up to in their neighborhood as the ideal couple, but in reality they are really not, and the kind of suburban life that they have falls apart when they decide they want to move to Paris, but something comes up and they are no longer able to do this, and they're kind of ridiculed, and their whole relationship kind of falls apart, and Kate Winslet's character tries to do anything to get out of their relationship. And kind of at surface level, Max, the first thought that I had when I watched this film was, why don't these two just get a divorce? That was the very first thing that popped into my mind. But
that's a sin.
I think, and there's no real religious undertones to this movie. There's no, they don't go to church in the movie. You know, they're not.
Well, no,
they're not super religious.
There is though. I think in terms of the movie, they represent the typical WASP family of that era, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So even though they might not show that, to me that was implied that they were WASPs, and
absolutely,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, and you also have to take in mind the time and place that this movie is set. This is obviously set in the 1950s. There's no specific date. And Kate Winslet's character, of course, wants to be an actress. And the movie opens rather brilliantly, in my opinion. We see DiCaprio and Winslet meeting at this house party. And then it kind of flashes forward to... Really, it kind of dives right into their relationship. Sorry, I dropped my phone there, of course. It really dives right into their relationship. You know, they're arguing on the side of the road. And I love that opening scene, Max, because you take these two people who it's assumed at this point in their life that they don't have any kids, because as the movie goes on, it's, you know, they have 2 kids, I believe, right? I didn't get a chance to rewatch this before.
They have 2 kids, which becomes a main plot point later on in the movie.
Right. So, anyway, so in the beginning of this film, they're arguing about, if memory serves me correct, which I think it does, they're arguing about, it's a very masculine-centered argument, because it's this argument about, of course, Kate Winslet's in this play, and the play sucks, but it's implied that she's great in it. And DiCaprio kind of just says, I don't know what you want me to say. You know, it's not my fault the play sucked. I don't know why you're taking this out on me, and blah, blah, blah. And that really, I think, sets the tone for this movie.
I think it sets the tone, too, because he says something along the lines of, I'm sorry you're your little acting career didn't work out.
Right.
Which sets the
when
tone
he's,
for we're going to be the wife cooks and cleans, I go to work. That's how it's going to be.
Yes. So, yeah, and that's what's so great about this movie is because, yes, it has that sort of really basic theme of this is 50s masculinity, this is, 50s gender roles. But I think the movie is able to transcend those in the way that things unfold. And I think the biggest part of this movie for me is Michael Shannon. Who has about maybe, I think we can say 5 to 10 minutes of screen time.
I'd be curious if that's a record for...
Michael Shannon is the conduit for the audience because Michael Shannon in the film plays the son of Kathy Bates and Richard Easton, and he has a mental disability, which is not... Is it bipolar? I'm not 100% sure.
I think he was declared insane, I believe.
Okay,
but
that's what it is.
I'm sure it's
yeah.
It's something like that. I'm sure he has autism and stuff too.
Sure, but and this is why, and then I'll throw it to you, Max, because I don't want to babble on too long. I want to get your thoughts on this as well. But to me, Michael Shannon is the conduit to the audience because as an audience, we're watching this, and Michael Shannon is basically saying the things that we want to say to this couple who. Is literally the definition of first world problems. They can't move to Paris, and we'll spoil a little bit of it. I don't think it takes anything away from the movie, but ultimately they can't move to Paris because it's April. That's what it is, April Wheeler. April gets pregnant, and so there's this great scene. One of my favorite acting clips of Michael Shannon where they're having Kathy Bates and the family there over for lunch or dinner or what have you, and there's this great conflict between Michael Shannon and Leonardo DiCaprio where DiCaprio accuses him of saying that he'll just say any damn thing that pops into his head. And I think even though he's in the movie for 5 to 10 minutes or so, Michael Shannon has invokes more emotion and more relatability to this movie as an audience member than any of the other characters in the film, which is just so brilliant to me, and I just love his take on this. But I'll throw it to you, Max. What did you think of the movie?
Well, like you're saying, I thought Michael Shannon was great. He was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. He was in 2 scenes. Fantastic. I think I've got to separate this movie into 2 categories. Is it my kind of movie? Not really. I found it to be a little slow personally, but I think as far as is it a good movie? Yeah, it's a really good movie. DiCaprio's great, Winslet's great, Michael Shannon's great. The couple scenes Kathy Bates is in, she's really good as well as David Harbour, who plays
David Harbour's fantastic.
David Harbour's fantastic as the neighbor.
He plays Shep.
Yes,
which is a great name.
I thought the movie was really powerful because. In the beginning, it's the 50s gender roles, and then April, without spoiling it, she wants to do something, and Frank.
Well, I already spoiled it.
Which part?
The part about them wanting to move to Paris.
Oh no, I was going to talk about the other thing.
Oh, okay, so sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So she wants to have something done, involving their children, and he emphatically says no. And later on in the movie, you find out that becomes really the major downfall for them, with tragic consequences. They set that up. Early, and I agree with what you said about Michael Shannon. He is kind of the conduit. The first scene he's in, it's almost like everyone's in a bubble because us being, progressive millennials, we can be like, oh yeah, I totally understand why you'd want to move to Paris. Your life sucks. I totally agree. Whereas everyone else in the movie is like, why would these people want to do that? The woman can't work. She can't make more money than the husband. And Michael Shannon comes in and is basically like, yeah, I get it. I totally understand in his crazy way. And then in his second scene, which is, I think, the most powerful movie of the scene, give or take Kate Winslet's at the end, her final scene. But I think it's so powerful because at that point, as the audience, we're kind of looking at this and we're like, you guys are fucking crazy. Why don't you just get a divorce? What is going on? You're torturing each other. Whereas Kathy Bates and her husband are like, oh, well, everything's good. And Michael Shannon's character is like, what are you guys doing? This is insane. You're terrible. You're terrible. You're both just awful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a great juxtaposition because, and this isn't, like, it's not groundbreaking in movies, but the person who's declared to be insane is actually the wisest person in the room at that point, because he's pointing out, look, your life is great. You have a great house, and Frank has a terrific job. It's implied that he probably makes a lot of money at, and they have this beautiful house. They live in a beautiful neighborhood. They've got 2 great kids. They just hate each other, and that's the problem. And I think there's also some great scenes of that, though, because you do understand, both sides of that, because what Sam Mendes does with this movie is he juxtaposes that, happy or unhappy suburban life, with Kate and Leo in this movie, because there's times where they just argue, and there's times where they're cool with each other, and then juxtaposes that against Kathy Bates and Richard Easton, who are, the couple that's just swallowed everything, or at least you find it in the end. On the surface, it kind of seems Kathy Bates and Richard Easton are this great couple who, they've figured it out. They've had a long, happy marriage. Obviously, it's tough dealing with their son, but that'd be a tough situation for anybody. But then at the end, you realize, well, no, they're not so great either, because there's this great scene at the very end. The final shot of this movie is perfect because it sums up everything that this movie is trying to show you. And in a way, I thought about 2 movies. I didn't see this obviously back in 2008. I saw it a little bit later. I thought of 2 movies that I have seen since watching this movie. One of them, of course, is American Beauty, which also Sam Mendes directed, because you have a lot of the same themes, of Kevin Spacey's the unhappy husband, and of course his wife. It's a little bit of a different gender roles because it does take place in a more of a modern era. But Kevin Spacey plays that guy who cheats on his wife and all this. So it's similar to that. But the other movie it made me think of, I don't know that you've seen this film, is the great, I think it's 1966 film, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? One of the greatest films of all time.
Ryan,
Elizabeth
Ryan,
Taylor,
that movie's not actually about Virginia Woolf, right? Classic.
I don't know what you're referencing.
Family Guy reference.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so there's these great scenes of just the whole point of Mike Nichols' Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is all you have is Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton just going at it, and they're using this young couple to prove to each other why they hate each other. And in this case, Leo and Kate are using excuses, like literally first world excuses to, they're like, oh, well, we can't go to Paris now. We got to stay in this beautiful house with our great kids in this great neighborhood with my great job. And like Kate Winslet, and obviously Kate Winslet, there is that theme of them, the missing dream or what have you. You know what I mean? So, I just think that this movie is even relevant to this day, because we see, it's almost like, I'm trying to put it in the words. I'm having a hard time.
That's a sentence.
But it just kind of shows, in my opinion, that it has the obvious theme of don't judge a book by its cover, because all these people see Frank and April as the model couple of the neighborhood.
It's like Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Yeah, but you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, and it just kind of shows why humans, even when they have everything, supposedly have everything, why are we always still trying to find the next best thing? Why are they not satisfied?
Or why do we settle for what we're not
Why do
happy
we settle?
with?
Exactly. And I don't even feel personally, I don't look at this movie and think, oh, they settled. I think, oh, they have a great life. They have 2 kids. What's getting redundant at this point? I just wanted to quick talk a little bit about the performances in this movie. I think this is Kate Winslet's best performance on film. I think she brings a lot of great emotion and power and relatability to this role as April Wheeler. Again, it's another reliably terrific performance by DiCaprio. He's great in this. Of course, the great Leonardo DiCaprio yelling. There's that scene we mentioned in at the dinner, and Kathy Bates is great in this as well. So tons of great performances in this movie. I just enjoy it, and I find it to be rewatchable. I don't know if it's something you'll revisit, but I've watched this movie at least 2 or 3 times, just as a way, once just to enjoy it, the second time just to kind of take in the themes, and the third time, honestly, I watch it just to sit back and and enjoy the performances, because the performances alone are enough to watch this movie.
Yeah, I agree. The performances are great. It's got a good message. Probably not something I'd watch again just because it's not my cup of tea. It's a little slow for me, but a fantastic movie. Definitely a good notch in DiCaprio's belt. And I think him and Kate Winslet did have really great chemistry. Obviously helped in part by the fact that they were in Titanic together. I think 10 years earlier. Right. So they had really good chemistry. Until their characters didn't anymore, and I think the last 20 minutes of the movie are really powerful because you kind of see the actions of all the characters coming to fruition, and very tragic, So
yeah, it's a tragic. Yeah, this is not a let's sit down and have date night movie. That's for sure. This is a powerful tragic story
you're
about
sending a message to your partner.
About a faded, yeah, that's right. About a faded couple, and you know what I was also thinking when I picked this movie is I was kind of going through the cast. Catherine Hahn, who, if you don't know who Catherine Hahn is, I don't know what her character's name is in the movie, but she's in Bad Moms, and she's kind of the
she's Millie Campbell.
Yeah, in the movie she's Millie Campbell, yes, but she's I'll just put it this way because I don't know the name of her character in Bad Moms. Is she's not Mila Kunis or Kristen Bell.
Oh, she's really good in Bad Moms.
She is terrific in both Bad Moms movies, actually. And she's got a very diverse filmography because she can do the stuff like Step Brothers, where she's pissing in the urinal, next to whoever, and then she can do movies like this where it's a little bit more reserved. She's dialed back. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out about Catherine Hahn, who's great actress.
Also in Captain Fantastic.
Yeah, she pops up in a lot of really random stuff. You watch it like, that's Catherine Hahn. Marissa and I were watching something last week or 2 weeks ago that I was like, hey, that's Catherine Hahn. I couldn't believe that she was in it. So.
She was nominated for an Emmy for her work in the TV series Transparent. Have not seen it, but
I have not seen Transparent either. Another person, a little bit unrelated, another person like that is John C. Reilly. Will pop up in.
He's in a lot of stuff
you wouldn't expect.
I'm watching
like Gangs in New York.
I was just gonna say I'm watching Gangs in New York. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, why is John C. Reilly?
He's good in it too.
He's a great actor. Yeah, I mean, like he's in The Aviator too. He's great in that.
Just think of like the curly-headed idiot that follows Will Ferrell around, but he's actually a good actor.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, it's great. So, but yeah, Revolutionary Road. It's on Netflix. I think I didn't see it as one of the ones. I wanted to check and see if it was going to be one of the ones maybe that I know they take movies off every month. But it looks like it'll be on Netflix.
I just watched it last week.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future. So definitely check out Revolutionary Road. Anything else you wanna say about the movie, or you want to move on to yours?
No, I think it's time to move on to my shitty pick, I guess, according to you.
I didn't say it was shitty. I just said
asshole.
You know what? We'll get into it. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. My pick is a Netflix original, The Meyerowitz Stories. Stars Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, Dustin Hoffman, Elizabeth Marvel, and Emma Thompson. For me, the reason I wanted to see this movie is Adam Sandler. In my opinion, this is Adam Sandler's finest film performance. I think this is really his
wrong.
I don't think so.
We'll get to that.
Adam Sandler is fantastic in this movie, as is Dustin Hoffman. Obviously, we expected from Dustin Hoffman. Basically, the Meyerowitz Stories. Adam Sandler's character, he plays Danny Meyerowitz, separates from his wife, moves in with his father, Harold, played by Dustin Hoffman, who is an artist, married to his third wife, Maureen, played by the lovely Emma Thompson, who's a kind of a nice but wispy alcoholic. Younger sister.
She's a little psychotic.
She's got a younger sister played by Elizabeth Marvel, as well as younger brother Ben Stiller. Adam Sandler's character's daughter starting college. So a lot of this stuff happens. His father gets sick, and he's having a feature art show showing all of his art. And Dustin Hoffman's character is very abrasive and really at odds with kind of all the kids. And basically, Ben Stiller's character, Matthew, was treated well by Dustin Hoffman's character growing up. And Danny and Maureen really were treated like shit. And so all this kind of stuff happens, and Danny and Maureen are kind of left out there with mixed feelings about their father, because he didn't treat him great. They weren't the talented ones in the family. and he kind of downplays their accomplishments. And Matthew is this kind of brilliant broker or real estate agent, all this kind of stuff. He's very successful, has a lot of money. He's negotiating selling the house, which causes a lot of grief. And overall, I think it's a good movie. It's not, like an Oscar contender or everything, but for me, this was a really good performance by Adam Sandler, which for me is enough reason to see it with all the shitty movies he's made. To see Adam Sandler actually act and not do the stupid voice, for me was enough to see it. And I thought it was a really good movie. It competed at Cannes. I don't know. What do you think, Riley? I know you're not as hot on it as I am, but I thought it was a quality film, and I thought Adam Sandler gave a really good performance.
Well, first of all, Adam Sandler's best performance is Punch Drunk Love, but I digress. Yeah, this is a Noah Baumbach movie. So Noah Baumbach is really into these dysfunctional family, dysfunctional human, really type thing. I haven't cared for a lot of his previous movies, so I wasn't really super excited to watch this movie. And then I remember when it came out, I got a little buzz, and I thought, well, I'll check it out. I had a Saturday afternoon or something like that, and I decided I would check it out. I enjoyed a lot of this movie. I think the best part about this movie is the writing. I think it's written really well. I think it's written really relatable, but most of Noah Baumbach's projects are. I think he has a really nice grasp of how people talk and situations, and he does a really good job putting the dysfunctional family on screen. However, the one thing I found about this movie is I think the pacing. I found the pacing to be dreadful in this movie. It takes forever to watch. I had a really hard time getting through this movie, even though it's under 2 hours. It comes in at an hour and 52 minutes. It's a really slow watch. But yeah, I mean, it really takes a nice little dive into the blended family dynamic in a way, because I don't think they're all kids. They're kids from different mothers, if I remember correctly. You probably watched it more recently than I did. So, but yeah, Sandler is great. And like we were talking about with Melissa McCarthy, do the garbage. But do this stuff, when he challenges himself, he can be a good actor. Punch Drunk Love, I mentioned. Spanglish, which is just an okay movie.
We'll get to that later. I've got a thing. Put together.
Sure, but anyway, do the garbage.
He can be a good actor.
Yes, do the garbage, but do this stuff. Challenge yourself. I don't have a lot of notes on this movie other than, yeah, you're right. It's a great Dustin Hoffman performance. He's great in the movie. I like the line where they're in the restaurant, and he's I think it's even in the trailer, because I remembered it when he says it in the movie.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, I remember hearing that before. The line where he talks about they're at the restaurant and he goes, you get the salmon to blow you for $35 or whatever it is. That's a great line. So this movie has a lot of great lines in it. And Ben Stiller is terrific in this movie too.
Yes.
I actually found Ben Stiller to be the best part of this movie, because I think he's a very layered character. I think he has the best arc of any of the characters.
I thought Dustin Hoffman's character was the best character.
Yeah, but in the way I looked at it is that Dustin Hoffman doesn't really change a lot throughout the movie. He just kind of is there.
That's true.
As a common bond between the kids, and Elizabeth Marvel is also terrific in this. Also, I don't know if you've noticed this. There's a lot of running in this movie. Like there's always like somebody running. Like I don't know what's going on with that, but so yeah, I did really enjoy the movie. I feel like we're not going to give this equal time because I just don't have a whole lot to, I sat down last night on a drive home from the cabin from the weekend, and I couldn't think of anything to talk about this movie.
It does have some surprising guest actors. I thought Judd Hirsch gave a really good performance.
Yeah,
LJ Shapiro, who's kind of it's Harold's friend, but really it's more of Harold's rival, I think.
Right.
Adam Driver's in the movie.
Adam Driver is in this movie. Yeah, well, he's been in some Noah Baumbach projects before.
Sigourney Weaver makes an appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great cast, and it's a good movie. This is a movie that I, much like you with Revolutionary Road, it's not a movie I'll probably revisit, just because I've seen it. That's good enough. But I guess my biggest takeaway from it is that Noah Baumbach really does a great job. Even if the movie's subpar. Like some other stuff that he's done, nothing that's coming to my mind. He's done a lot of indie stuff that I don't think a lot of people saw. He did something like Mistress America, which I thought was terrible. That came out a couple years ago. That was really well revered. While We're Young, is a movie with Ben Stiller.
Adam Driver as well.
Yep, and that's a little bit more about. I actually enjoy While We're Young a little bit more than the Meyerowitz Story. I think that's my favorite Noah Baumbach film because it does a nice job kind of diving into Ben Stiller's character having a midlife crisis in that movie, and he is to some extent here too.
And I haven't seen it, but just doing a quick look up on it, it looks like a movie I might want to see. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Screenplay for The Squid and the Whale.
Yep, that's a very popular indie film. It's something I haven't seen either.
Produced by Wes Anderson, also starring Jeff Daniels and Laura Linney. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of lineage with. I guess lineage probably isn't the right word, but he wrote. Wes Anderson. He wrote the screenplay for Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox,
as well as the Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou.
Yep, he's worked with Wes Anderson, and he has a lot of Wes Anderson's sensibilities. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of the the long takes. There's that scene in this movie. There's a shot where Ben Stiller's running down the sidewalk, and the camera doesn't follow Ben Stiller, and then you see Dustin Hoffman's character follow him. That's a very Wes Anderson-y type shot that he puts in the movie. So. This is it's a really good movie, and I know you got your whole thing with Sandler.
I was just encouraged. It was encouraging to me to see Netflix. If nothing else, it's a solid movie no matter what. That Netflix was able to have Adam Sandler in a movie that didn't fucking suck.
Yeah, no, I would definitely recommend it. I'm not saying I hate. I mean, I'm making it sound like I hated the movie. I didn't hate it. It's just Noah Baumbach has an audience. I think it's a lot more of a hipster audience. A lot of his movies are a little bit more of the hipster indie type stuff. But I'll watch him because he's a innovative filmmaker. I don't, despite his themes all being similar in his movies, I don't think he makes the same movie twice like a lot of directors do, where they just have like one thing they do well, or writers in the case of like Diablo Cody. I haven't seen Tully yet, but like. He's a little bit different from Diablo Cody in that Diablo Cody just writes movies about like teenagers and like how I'm not a big fan of Juno in that regard, but I like Noah Baumbach, and if you like Noah Baumbach movies, odds are you're probably not listening to this podcast yet.
No shit.
But yeah, if you like Noah Baumbach movies, I would definitely say this is one you should check out. It's one of his better ones for sure.
And if you think Adam Sandler is a horseshit actor. Watch this movie.
You might be pleasantly surprised.
He doesn't. At least he's not doing that stupid. I'm trying to even think how to do that accent he always does. Well, I'm Adam Sandler and I'm 45 now, but I still use this voice.
Yeah, is that the Sandy Wexler, like Billy Madison?
Yeah,
thing?
The Billy Madison voice. He just uses it in every movie.
Yeah, it's awful.
Like he's
been in some
He's
junk.
the reason Rob Schneider, David Spade. Whatever that dude that sounds like the parrot from that fucking Disney movie. He's like the only reason those guys are employed still.
Yeah, probably.
God, I hate that guy's voice.
I know a lot of people are. So Sandler has that deal with Netflix, and he just released the one with Chris Rock, which I've heard is the best of the current 4 Adam Sandler movies on Netflix, but.
Yeah, I mean,
I still will watch it. I've only seen The Ridiculous 6. I'm not even going to touch the Sandy Wexler thing or whatever the fuck he's doing. I
do have one of those we'll talk about. Well, I guess since we're talking about this, do we just kind of want to go into my
your little your thing to
my kind of conclusion thing here? So watching this thing about Adam Sandler kind of got me thinking, about his career, because obviously you grow up, you're like, oh, Adam Sandler's funny, and now you're like, dude, retire. But I think he's really interesting. He's a good singer. He's on Saturday Night Live. He's made some iconic movies.
Yeah, he was great on Saturday Night Live.
So I kind of compiled a list here. 4 different categories: worst movies, movies that shockingly didn't suck, most hilarious, and best performance. So we can have a little discussion about these, and in no particular order.
So you've got 5 top 5 lists, is what you're saying?
4 top 5 lists.
Oh, okay. I should have put my own together.
That's okay.
But no, this is good. This is good. We'll do it this way.
So, worst movies. Again, in no particular order. I've got Bedtime Stories. Just abomination. You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
Awful movie.
That's My Boy, where he uses that voice again.
Yeah, he's got like he adds a little like almost Canadian, like Boston weird accent. Like he's trying to do a Boston accent in that movie, and all it sounds like is he sounds like he's from Canada. Like it's just a terrible Boston accent.
Some idiot from Canada.
Yeah.
Ridiculous Six.
Awful.
And Jack and Jill.
Okay.
So he does admittedly have a bunch of shitty movies I could have put in there, but those are...
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost have to do a top, 10 or 15 of his movies, because there's a couple that...
I haven't seen enough of them, because they're so bad. I don't even want to watch them. Like, the Cobbler...
I'll throw in a couple... The Cobbler is awful. Objectively, is a terrible movie. Do you know what's funny about The Cobbler, though? So that movie was directed by Tom McCarthy, and you know what other movie Tom McCarthy directed?
I don't.
Spotlight.
Really?
So, that's a little fun fact about it.
What a weird career...
Yeah. Well, the Cobbler kind of limped out onto like streaming and stuff because I'm sure he wanted to bury it as far as it could be buried. So I'll throw in a couple of my honorable mentions. Kind of just looking through his filmography. Just Go With It is terrible. I hate that movie. I've actually have never seen Bedtime Stories, and I don't need to. Yeah, apparently I don't. Yeah, Little Nicky is a movie I can't stand. I know there are some early Sandler people that do like that movie. This is probably going to be a hot take, but I'm not. I hate The Waterboy. Hate that movie, and I don't know if it's because I've seen it so many times that I just
it's like the idiot.
Want to get it out of my head.
It's like the idiot's version of Forrest Gump.
Oh my God, it's so bad. Absolutely terrible. I'm sorry, go ahead though.
No, I was just going to say it's the idiot's version of Forrest Gump. Okay, so next list here, movies of Adam Sandler that shockingly didn't suck. Now, I'm not saying these are great movies by any means, but these are movies, if they're on TV and I have a beer and some nachos, I'd watch. Okay?
Right.
First one was The Do-Over, which is one of his Netflix movies with David Spade. It wasn't terrible. It was passable. It was enough action and entertaining, and he wasn't terrible in it. The Longest Yard remake.
I really enjoy The Longest Yard remake. I've seen both of them, and I like the Burt Reynolds original one more.
Yep.
But the remake is actually I have a lot of fun with that movie.
I think it's buoyed by a good performance by Chris Rock.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Come to
and the supporting characters in that movie are great.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of get our some of the first looks at it. Terry Crews is in that, I believe, isn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
He is.
Doing
some of Terry Crews' first films.
Is he Cheeseburger Eddie?
I believe so. Yeah.
Or is that another guy?
I believe he is Cheeseburger Eddie.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Oh yeah. Grown Ups.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd say Grown Ups because the one thing I think about Grown Ups is if you've watched that movie, tell me what the conflict is. There is no conflict in that movie, and when there is conflict, it's resolved literally in that scene.
Well, and
but it's fine. It's a fine movie.
It's an ensemble that you would never, ever, ever want to see in their own movies. Rob Schneider, Kevin James. Who's the other dude in that? David Spade.
Spade's in it.
Yeah.
Chris Rock.
But
and then it's got a great supporting cast though, like Maria Bello and Maya Rudolph, and the guys who play like their rivals, like Steve Buscemi's really great in this.
The main actress, what's her name? I can draw a blank.
Selma Hayek.
Selma Hayek, yeah. And they play really well together, I think.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned the I'm sorry, I mentioned the other supporting guy, like Colin Quinn. Like nobody's seen Colin Quinn since he had that he was on Weekend Update for a while on SNL, and then like Tim Meadows is in this movie.
Yeah, it's one of those that it wasn't good enough to make my top hilarious or best performance list, but it's not a bad film.
No, it's not. I actually I enjoy large parts of Grown Ups. Yeah. That is a movie of his that I would watch again.
The next one, it's gonna clash with you. Little Nicky. He has a stupid accent. I agree, but it's entertaining.
It's bad.
There's enough.
Man.
There's enough dumb shit. It's entertaining.
Sure.
But again, I'm just saying it didn't suck. I didn't say it's good by any stretch of the imagination. And the last movie that didn't suck, Spanglish.
Yeah, so Spanglish to me, I don't know why that's a shock it didn't suck, because that's not an Adam Sandler.
It's not a classic Adam Sandler movie.
No, and I like that there are some things about it. I think Tia Leone overacts a shit ton in that movie, as she does in everything she does. And so there's a lot of scenes with her that I find cringeworthy. But everything with like Adam Sandler and the kid and like the other interactions that he has with some of the other cast members are great. It's a perfectly fine movie. It's a James L. Brooks movie who, this guy wrote like Terms of Endearment and As Good as It Gets and Broadcast News and all these really great films. And he does a great job with that movie, and Sandler is great in it.
I think it's a victim of the writing isn't particularly good in the movie, but his performance is good, and it actually got nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Original Score from Hans Zimmer, of all people.
Yeah, the guy,
Hans Zimmer, great guy.
I'm a big fan of Hans Zimmer.
It is. So getting a little more positive here, kind of in no particular order, except it kind of is in particular order here. I think the most hilarious Adam Sandler movies, I think there's very little argument to what his funniest movie is, and that's, of course, Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit, because Happy Gilmore is probably, like, if I had to rank them, Happy Gilmore is probably my number 2 of my favorite movies.
I think my number 2 is, well, I guess it could go either way. So my number 2 is going to be Billy Madison.
No, I don't even have that. I mean, yes, it's in the top 5, but that's.
I think Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison are both hilarious. I mean, Billy Madison obviously gave us, one of the best burn lines ever. May God have mercy on your soul.
That's one of the best scenes.
It's
Billy
Sandler
Madison
doing a stupid accent, but it works because at that point he's young enough. It's not like creepy.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison are kind of the world's cinema, I guess I should say, because he had done some bit parts and things like Airheads, which is actually a pretty good little movie if you haven't seen it. But he had done some other stuff after SNL, and then I think, when Billy Madison comes out in '95, and then Happy Gilmore the year after, that's what really cements him as a movie star.
Absolutely.
And then from there on out, so those are definitely in the top 5 for me. But maybe I'll put a little list together here really quick of my. Well, we'll go through yours and we'll see if they were much different.
All right. The other one of the other most hilarious movies, Adam Sandler, The Wedding Singer, which I'm sure is your number one pick. Yep.
That's my number one. I love The Wedding Singer, man. That movie is so funny. Drew Barrymore. It's one of the only movies that I can like watch Drew Barrymore and not hate her.
I hate her.
Oh, she is fantastic in that movie.
So
she's so funny in that.
Julia?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite lines of that. It's just a hilarious movie. And like the song he sings to audition for her when she's trying to find a singer for her wedding, and then John Lovett's creeping it up in the corner. Everything about The Wedding Singer, I just find it to be just an endlessly rewatchable movie.
I guess I was kind of full of shit. I guess I did have Grown Ups on my hilarious list. Solid movie. And my last one, controversial, but I didn't want to put The Waterboy on there. There's a couple different movies I could have picked. I picked Big Daddy.
Big Daddy's terrific. So
funny.
Your top 5 would be similar to mine, except I would take out what did you put in? Grown Ups. I would probably take out Grown Ups, and I would either put in if we're just talking about strictly. Is these the funniest ones, or are we talking about the best?
These are the funniest ones.
Okay, I would probably. I think I like Mr. Deeds. I have
Mr. Deeds is funny. I like
some hours for Mr. Deeds.
That was kind of a toss-up.
I also I don't hate 50 First Dates. Honestly, I would probably throw The Longest Yard in that top 5 funniest. I would probably take out Grown Ups and put The Longest Yard in.
Pretty funny. I can see that. So finally, the list here of best performances. This is in no particular order. These are movies I felt that Adam Sandler gave his best performances of his career. First, Meyerowitz Stories. We talked about that. Second, 50 First Dates. I think he's good in that.
I think that's a good performance.
I think it's a pretty good performance. I
think it's fine.
I haven't seen it in a long
comedy.
Time. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I'm scared to revisit that movie.
Yeah,
I might just let that one exist as it is in
my
consciousness.
I think I'm gonna like that a lot less the second time. And now I think this is kind of the big 3 Meyerowitz Stories notwithstanding, the big three of his career, I would say, Funny People.
Oh man, I'm so happy you mentioned Funny People. That actually is probably my favorite movie of his. If we're not talking funniest, I think Funny People is probably my favorite. I think that movie is so great, and he is great in it. That's other than Punch Drunk Love, I think that's my favorite performance.
I think he gives a great performance in that. Yep. Second to last, Punch Drunk Love.
Mm-hmm.
Great flick.
Great Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yep. And the last one, I'm not sure how many people really have seen it. I realize that it's a Sandler movie, but Reign Over Me.
This is a movie that I actually haven't seen. This one with Don Cheadle and like Liv Tyler's in it, I think.
Yeah, basically after 9/11, he plays a character named Charlie Finneman. Lost his whole family in the terrorist attacks, and he kind of strikes up a friendship with. Well, I guess he doesn't strike up a friendship, but he reconnects with Don Cheadle, his old college roommate, and Charlie has a lot of demons, and they they start hanging out, and Don Cheadle's wife doesn't like that, and he's changing as a person, and it's a really good story about dealing with depression and suicide and that kind of stuff, and it's a serious role, but there's also humor there because you can see the character that Adam Sandler plays is he's just got so much going on, and I think Adam Sandler gives a really good performance. It's got Adam Sandler, Don Cheadle, Jada Pinkett Smith, Liv Tyler, Donald Sutherland. It's a pretty talented cast.
Yeah, that's who made that film?
That was directed by Mike Binder.
Okay.
Produced by his brother Jack Binder.
He I want to say he was it him? He was like in Minority Report. Like I feel like he acted in Minority Report or something.
He did. He was Leo Crow, I believe.
Yep. Yep. And he's also some of the stuff he's done recently. He directed a really bad Kevin Costner film that came out about 3 or 4 years ago called Black or White. Or Black. Yes. Black. Oh yeah, Black or White.
Black or White. He was the director, producer, and writer on that film.
It's a very bad movie. Very, very bad movie. It's so like ham-fisted in the way that it deals with its themes. It's just
isn't that the
Octavia Spencer's in it? Yeah, it's bad. It was like a January release back in 2014. I remember watching it and just it's gross. It's a bad movie.
Costner's very hit or miss.
Lately, he has been. Yeah, he's been in a lot of bad stuff.
But
one of the interesting things that I thought, real quick, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. So Josh and Benny Safdie are these new young filmmakers, who directed a movie last year that I tell everybody about and rave about, called Good Time. That stars Robert Pattinson. I think I probably even mentioned it last week. You'll probably find that I mention it a lot on this show.
He's a big fan of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. If you haven't seen Good Time, hopefully we can talk about it at some point, because it is on Amazon Prime. Robert Pattinson movie. It's so good. Please go watch it. But anyway, so their new movie is called Uncut Gems, and Adam Sandler is the first person to be cast in that movie. I found that to be
I did not know
an interesting. I just found that out today when I was preparing for the show here, and you were talking about Sandler. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's billed as a comedy, a crime drama. So I'm interested to see what do what the Safdie brothers can do with a comedy, because Good Time is dark, really dark.
So does it.
Yeah, looking forward to their next thing. So
that's what I got. That's my list. Adam Sandler is a very versatile actor when he wants to be, and he's a shitty actor when he just wants to collect his paycheck.
Yeah. We're going to try to keep the end of this show fluid. Last week we did the hot and cold takes.
This is the end. Goodbye.
Yeah. Podcast is over. Find us on Twitter. No, we did the hot and cold taste last week, and I was talking to Max a little bit, and we just decided there was nothing that we really felt strongly enough about to talk about. So the end of our show is just kind of going to be us probably BSing or whatever.
Just gonna talking about whatever we want to.
Yeah, one of the things, a movie related, that I did want to mention, was a couple of classic films that I've watched recently that I'd recommend to people. I've been on I don't know if you know who John Huston is, Max.
I don't.
But John Huston has directed films like The African Queen, some other great classic movies. I watched 2 of his recently because I subscribed to Filmstruck, which is an excellent movie streaming service if you're into classic movies, Criterion Collection type stuff. And I recently watched one that I think you would like, Max. It's from 1948 called Key Largo. It has a lot of like a Hateful Eight type vibe where like Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall are in this hotel in the Florida Keys, and it's very claustrophobic setting where they're in there with a gangster. That's a great film. So I guess these are my classic recommendations of the week, which will not be every week. But I also watched a film called The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is one of the greater films of all time. But yeah, so just wanted to shout out those two movies on Filmstruck if you have it, or digital or whatever. So go find those 2 movies. They're great. Black and white, but they're great.
As before,
I know a lot of people
color.
have bias about, I'm not gonna watch it because it's black and white. Well, you might like it.
Yeah, so. And I've dealt with that before. I've kind of caught myself doing that, but the acting is still fantastic.
Well, you have to put yourself in a place where you have to put yourself in that mindset of what it was like back in that day.
Right.
They didn't have color, they didn't have great action effects or anything like that. You just kind of have to appreciate it for the way it is. But yeah, a lot of my appreciation for a lot of older films is just watching some of the golden age movie stars like Humphrey Bogart, Katharine Hepburn and Gary Cooper. And all
Speaking of that, if you're ever in Red Lodge, Montana, there's a restaurant called Bogart's, dedicated to Humphrey Bogart. Stuff all over the walls, and their food is fantastic. It's a Mexican place.
Sponsor us. Get them to sponsor us.
Anybody from?
It's a Mexican place.
It is. It is. They have some. They have these nachos not nachos, wings. It's like this garlic barbecue sauce. Oh my god, it's amazing. It's just
that's great.
Delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are a couple of classic movies that I watched recently. Also, if you like Humphrey Bogart, check out Maltese Falcon. It's a great movie too. I've been trying to get into more classic stuff lately. I've been trying to watch, some of the more celebrated other films. Actually, what I'm trying to do, which sounds like an impossible task, I've actually been trying to watch as many of the movies on, I can't remember the author's name right now, I'll look it up, but on the list of 1001 movies to see before you die, I've actually been trying to crush a lot of those, and it's funny, some of them are very hard to find, like the 1915 The Birth of a Nation is on there, the 3-hour like Civil War epic that a lot of people have issues with, that it's very controversial. But yeah, I'm trying to plow my way through that, trying to plow my way through AFI's top 100 list. So yeah, I've been trying to find ways to watch that a little bit more. What have you watched anything else recently? Yeah, trying to. I love movies, man.
I saw Dirty Rotten Scoundrels last week.
I have never seen that film.
Michael Caine and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I'm blanking on his. What's his name? He's like the other version of Leslie Nielsen.
I have no idea. You know who directed that movie?
Hold on. He was in. Fuck me. I'm just gonna Google it. I cannot believe. Steve Martin. How did
Steve
I was
Martin?
Just having
the other brain. Leslie Nielsen? Is that how you describe Steve Martin?
Looks like him.
Do you know who directed Dirty Rotten Scoundrels?
That was Frank Oz, if I'm not mistaken.
Yoda directed. Yoda directed a movie.
It was a good movie. It's funny seeing Michael Caine younger, because my first exposure to Michael Caine was in Batman.
Really?
Yeah.
You were late to the Michael Caine.
I think the first movie
I saw Michael Caine was The Cider House Rules, which is a great movie. But I'm trying to look at Michael Caine's filmography. There's a lot of great.
He is Academy Award for The Italian Job.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see. Educating Rita. They won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Hannah and Her Sisters.
Yep, that's a Woody Allen film. It's a great movie.
Cider House Rules, and he's a very celebrated British actor.
Yeah, he was. I'm looking up his filmography right now because he was in a movie that I watched recently.
He was nominated for an Academy Award in every decade from 1960 onwards to the 2000s.
Yeah, man, he's one of the greats for sure. I've also been trying to get into a little bit of more. I'm a huge Scorsese fan. And there's been a lot of Scorsese stuff. I watched 2 of his early movies that are on Filmstruck. One of them is called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Excellent movie. One of my favorite Scorsese movies with Ellen Burstyn, I think. Ellen Burstyn or Ellen Bark? I think it's Ellen Burstyn. Nominated. I won an Oscar actually for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I also watched a movie, his very first movie, which was I believe Harvey Keitel's first movie, called Who's That Knocking at My Door? I think is what it's called.
Something I just found interesting about Michael Caine. He's a fan of chill out music and has released a compilation CD called Caned. He's worked with Elton John. When Caine told Elton John he'd be releasing chill out mixtapes as an amateur, and he also provided vocal samples for the ska pop band Madness for their 1984 hit song Michael Caine.
That's like
ska pop. Michael Caine did not see the comment.
That's like Smash Mouth. No, that's like Jeff Bridges releasing his his album for sleep where he just makes like weird fucking noises.
Just
yeah, he's a weird dude, man. Yeah,
he's fine.
I just want an album of Jeff Bridges going like "Go to sleep,"
he's so hilarious.
or just him reading "Go the fuck to sleep" and not Samuel L.
Jackson. Samuel Jackson's pretty fun. What? You just got some milk. Go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Well, I think we've ran over 2 hours of recording this. I don't know if the final I don't know if the final version is going to be 2 hours for you. We've been recording this for 2 hours, so yeah, man, me too. Back to reality tomorrow for me. You've been working for
tomorrow's Friday.
For you?
It is. Tomorrow's my Friday, and I do my final diet weigh-in, so I'm going to have a huge pizza when I'm done with work.
There you go. That's awesome. I have to get back on the horse this week because I
snap back to reality.
Did nothing but drink beer and eat crappy. Well, I mean, I didn't eat terrible. It's grilled chicken and stuff like that all weekend.
Well, that's how I found the beer is what gets you.
Right. I hadn't had beer in actually since you were here. I don't think it was my first time.
We had a guy at work. He goes, "Yeah, I lost a lot of weight when I started only drinking beer Friday through Sunday instead of Monday through Sunday." I was like, "Yeah, no, that'll get you. That'll down in that 24 pack every day. That'll get you."
Yeah, that's right. That's a lot of beer.
It is.
24 a day.
I've said that before. I don't like the taste of Bud Light enough to just drink it casually.
Right.
No,
that's valid.
But.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the show for this week.
It's been a pleasure. Riley's got all the info on where to find us. We'll send out
I do. Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter stuff, and thank you to all our relatives, which probably make up 48 of the 50 viewers.
Yeah. Right. There's probably one dude somewhere, or gal, I guess I should say. I guess we shouldn't
Armand White.
To just dudes. Armand White. Yeah.
What are these dickheads up to again?
He's listening. Yeah. They're going to talk shit about me again this week.
Suck Armand.
Yeah. So, Max, I don't know. You want to plug your Twitter account or anything like that? We'll put it in the.
Not if we have people we know. Not if we have relatives with sensitive ears.
Well, I mean, they got to read it sometime, right? If they're relatives, won't they like you? Won't they still love you anyway?
If I die in a car crash, I got my Twitter set to automatic wipe.
That's impressive. I don't know how you managed to get them that, but yeah. So last week we had mentioned that the show was going to be on YouTube. That obviously did not happen. So I would just say if you want to know or want to listen to our show, just follow us on social media. I'm on Twitter, just at Riley Granson. I also actually for the first time last week, Max, I posted my first Instagram post. So
wow.
You can go see. I'm about 6 years late to the party.
I don't want to do this podcast with you anymore.
You know what? So I got a new phone. And it's got a great camera, so I thought, I'll take a picture of. Mostly, it's it's probably just gonna be me because I couldn't figure it out. I felt like I was 90 years old having Marissa explain to me how Instagram worked.
Gonna be taking
so I probably won't be using it much. That's right. But you can go check out a picture of my dog on Instagram if you want. I took a picture of my dog. So
he like dresses the dog up and like makes a whole scene. And like,
I dressed her in
really weird
banana costume, and then got another dog and dressed it in a gorilla costume, and they just chased each other down the street. That was the picture on Instagram. Not really though.
That's,
but yeah, you can follow me on the Twitter at Riley Granson. The show, we posted it last week to Vimeo, so if you want to check out the show, go ahead and go on Vimeo. Realistically, if you are listening to this at this point,
I fucking love you.
You know it's on video or Vimeo. I'm sorry, you know it's on Vimeo. So we'll probably post it there in the next couple of weeks. We're gonna try and get it on some podcasting hosting websites.
We're in talks with iTunes, Sirius and XM. We're also trying to get a piece of the action. We're negotiating. So
we're huge. We're the biggest. We're the next big thing.
Yeah, we'll see what goes on there. I guess they like our style.
Right.
You know, we're so handsome. They want us on a show that doesn't show our faces.
Yeah, that's right. I was just gonna say they we're so handsome that we're doing radio. Technically, is this considered radio? Is podcasting considered radio?
I don't think so. We're not broadcasting live. I guess I don't know.
But you could do we could do a podcast live. It just would have to be on like
podcast radio, internet radio on demand.
Yeah. So. Well, we'll let the audience call us stupid for looking up whether or not podcasting is radio. So Max, so no plugs for you. You don't want to. All
right.
People to know where they can find you.
Twitter's just my name.
Yep. We're pretty boring people.
For
the most part.
The things I tweet are not representative of who I am in person. Just FYI. I like to argue with people.
Yeah, you do. You love arguing with people. I feel like that's a problem sometimes.
People out there though.
There's a lot of stupid people out there.
No. Like I was at the grocery store today trying to check out. This dude kept ramming me with his cart. He's lucky he's 85. I was about to turn out and be like, "Can you fucking chill out for a second? I can't move, bud." Just keeps ramming me. Didn't say anything. Gosh.
What a dick. Did you tell me? You should be like, go back to the nursing home.
I thought he might have been like
How dare he?
I thought he might have been like a Civil War veteran, so I didn't.
Civil War veteran.
Dude is ancient.
He's probably listening to this. He's probably like super hip. He's like probably the hippest guy at the nursing home.
They're talking about.
All right.
They're talking about me on the internet machine.
That's like the where the old lady holding up the earphone to the what?
They're talking about me on the Family Man. If there's any old people listening,
yeah, hopefully.
No offense.
Yeah.
Thanks for the debt and all that kind of stuff, but
yeah.
Besides
thanks
that,
for the views.
Thanks for we're just gonna undertake this racism and stuff. But yeah.
Excellent. Well, hopefully there aren't too many new releases coming out this week. Maybe we'll have some new releases for you guys next week. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about Solo spoilers instead. We'll go a little bit in depth if we want. We can do whatever we want. It's our show.
We want.
We're not subscribed to the corporate overlords. Although that would be great. Just email us. We'll give some shout outs. We'll have some sponsors. That's fine. I like making money.
Who wants to give us money? Give me money.
All right.
Give me money.
All right. That's all for the show this week. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.